I'm Shami. I'm a peak performance architect for CEOs, founders, and high performers. I created the Limitless Edge method where science meets energy mastery to unlock unstoppable momentum and success for you. But here's the thing, working with incredible high achievers, I became obsessed with one question. Imagine this, two people, equally talented, equally driven, are putting in the same effort day in and day out. But why does one person's success skyrocket while the other stays stuck spinning their wheels? In other words, when two people have the same skills, the same hunger for success, and the same dedication to hard work, what sets their paths apart? You might think the answer is more hard work, that the solution is to push harder, grind longer, and out hustle everyone else. But here's the truth, it's not about working harder, it's about something deeper. The key to long lasting success is mastering your energy. Because when you master your energy, you master your destiny. And that's exactly what I've been helping high performers do. Every high performer you'll meet in this series started where you might be right now, wondering if there's another way to achieve everything you dream of. This is where I come in. Through energy mastery coaching, I help high performers unlock their fullest potential. And here's the exciting part, the shifts you're about to see might surprise you. In this series, I'm truly peeling back the curtain. You'll witness raw, unfiltered conversations with people who've been on this journey with me. You'll see the real stories, the aha moments, and the ripple effects of mastering energy in their lives. And the best part, these transformations are multidimensional, and that is the magic of energy. Keep this in mind. What you're about to see are not the behind the scenes process, but the actual results. And my hope is that these transformations will speak for themselves. In these videos, you'll see exactly how energy can become your greatest advantage. And here is the kicker, some of these breakthroughs might make you rethink everything you thought you knew about success, whether it's in business, health, wealth, relationships, or your career. What you're about to witness might just be the missing piece you've been looking for. So, with that said, let's dive right in and see what's possible when you master your energy.
Well, at the end of the session, you told me both the reason why the pain was there, and then we also healed the pain, which was amazing because I hadn't been pain free in a very long time. In fact, I wasn't even sure, like, I couldn't even comprehend how that could have happened. Like, in one session, how the pain that I had for so many years, how could it like just disappear like with a magic wand. And that night I
Hi, Shwati. I am super happy that you're here. And so you have a bunch of wins that you've just been like stacking up. Like it's been like one win on top of another, right? Like since we started working, and there are like seven major wins that we are going to talk about today, and I'm super excited. So let's start at the beginning. Before you joined the cohort, how did we meet? What helped you? What made you, or what made you curious to like check out the cohort? How did that start? And anything else you wanna just like give some context to?
yeah, sure. Hey Shami, I'm so excited to be here as well. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, so we met. It was honestly, um, I would have been never so open minded about meeting like some random stranger over the internet, but that's how we met on Twitter or X. Now it's called X. And usually I never go on any social media platforms, or I never spend any time on any social media because I live in my own sort of little bubble that I don't have time for all these things. But then what ended up happening was I was in my role at Twitter, and I was laid off, and I suddenly had so much of free time in my day that I was trying to keep myself busy. And I've been in this like this little hamster moving around in the round and round in the hamster wheel in this busy sort of a thing, and suddenly it's like the wheel broke and now this hamster has no wheel, and I'm just so clueless about what I should be doing with all my time during the day. So that's when, in like one random interaction, I guess it was a tweet from you on Twitter, wherein you were talking about an upcoming cohort. So that kind of interested me, and that's when I sent you a direct message on Twitter, and then we jumped on a like a quick alignment call about, and then you explained to me what the cohort was about and the time commitment and things like that, and that's how we met.
Yeah, I still remember that. That was the first time knew that Shwati as a person existed, because it wasn't like we were interacting with each other on tweets. The other people who joined the cohort, I kind of knew at least of them, if not everything about them. So it was very interesting to be like, as soon as, and you might not have known this, that was the week of me announcing the cohort. And so as soon as I put it out, it actually got filled in like, it got filled up 90 percentage like in 24 hours. And you were one of those people, and I was like, what? I have no idea where these people are coming from. So that was my side of the experience. And so when we were chatting, one of my first questions was like, hey, like, how did you find me? Have you been like following along but never commented, or like what was happening? And you were like, no, I randomly logged in, and today I saw this message and I got curious. And that was a very pleasant experience on my end as well. And I remember our alignment call, and how in like 15 minutes, I think we spoke for 25, 30 minutes. But at
Yeah.
the end of it, you were like, no, I was already made up. I made up my mind in the first 15 minutes. I was like, okay, this is great. So, okay, so that's how we met. And then we went through the cohort, and I enjoyed the cohort very much. I enjoyed working with every single one of you. And so from the cohort, how did we move on to the long-term work? What were you? What place were you in? What were your challenges at the time, or like were you just curious about like, hey, I just want to explore energy as a dimension? It could be any one of those things. So I'm curious to know how from the cohort we ended up going into like we are working together on a long-term container.
Yes. So when we had the cohort, I I had already found a job for myself, so I was with into my full time employment, and although when we had the alignment call, I was kind of still struggling, trying to figure out what is it that I should do. I'm feeling so lost, and then like I said, I was having so much of time, like free time on my hand. Plus, I had tied in like my identity so strongly to my job and my position, and I was like moving through all of those things on one hand, and on the other hand I was also going through multiple rounds of interviews and then getting rejections and all these things. But then by the time we went into the cohort, I was kind of settled in my full-time role, and i I honestly didn't have any like expectations, or I should say I was like completely curious and open minded about what the cohort would offer me. Yeah.
Okay, so you joined the cohort, and then from the cohort, you then ended up joining like a long-term energy mastery coaching relationship with me. And how did that happen? And I know you kind of wanted to have a first session, but I'll let you explain or like share that experience. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, at the end of the session, you told me both the reason why the pain was there, and then we also healed the pain, which was amazing because I hadn't been pain free in a very long time. In fact, I wasn't even Sure. Like I couldn't even comprehend how that could have happened. Like in one session, how the pain that I had for so many years, how could it like just disappear like with a magic wand? And that night, I yes. So after the cohort ended, I I wasn't like quite sure. Like I was interested in exploring further, um, and and working with you. But then I wasn't quite sure, and I was like, oh, this is again a time commitment, and then like a financial commitment. So then what I thought was, and then you had like these packages that were like for the long term, and then there were like so many choices and options that I had to make. So it was all kind of very fatiguing to choose when like given these choices of this, should I take this one or should I go with that package or should I do this, or what if I just don't do anything. Like I was, or maybe I'm just fine the way it is. So then I thought, let me just do like one off session to experience what it is like. Because what we did in the cohort was not at all kind of like related to what we did in the one off healing session. So then that's when I ended up reserving one off healing session with you, like right after the cohort had ended.
Right. Okay. So you you come to the cohort and now you're like, okay, we're wrapping up. Like if you want to continue working, here's another way to work. And you got curious and we booked the one-off session, right? Because you were trying to figure out if the long term was even a possibility. Because I wasn't really doing one-off at that time, but because hey, like I want to experience and then I want to like go all in. So we did that. Tell me more about the first session. I think this was one of the banger sessions ever, because oftentimes from my side I get to work with people and it's like even if you work together for like 6 months, 12 months or like 18, right? It's like every there's a larger theme because you have really big ambitious goals as a high performer. But then every session it's like, okay, how much can we shift? Like how much energy can we shift? What can we do? And then you beautiful human beings get to go out and live your life and then come back with and then we come back with the next one and we work on that, right? So I don't often get to partake in the joy of like all seeing or feeling all the ripple effects of the session. So the couple of calls I've been doing, it's been amazing to have that. Oh, like this is how that session had an effect, an impact on your life. And so this has been fun. And we spoke about it a little bit in a different call earlier. And I learned a lot about even just the first session. So can you share just anything about it in your own words?
Yes. So when we did the one-off session, I wasn't really sure, like, what is it that I should get out of the session, very similar to what is it that I should get out of the cohort. And again, I was like curious and open minded, and we explored the various options. We talked through, like, what is it that we can do in, or, and then you asked me, like, is there anything that you are wanting to achieve, like your goals? And then I didn't have like any clearly set committed goals. Or then you said, is there something like that's bothering you like right now at this moment? Then I thought of, oh, there is like in my physical body there was this pain that had been bothering me for a very long time. It was like under my right armpit, like under the shoulder, inside the armpit. It's in the armpit. And I had been living with that pain for a very long time. It started like way back in July of 2011. And then then I asked, and then there was this thing about in the session about setting an intention. Then you asked me like, how would you set an intention? And I wasn't sure how to form an intention even. So then I said, okay, I want to know the reason why this pain is there. then you told me that, do you want to know the reason why the pain is there, or do you want to like heal the pain and then move on? So then I was like, wait, is that an option? Then I said, okay, then how about we do both? Like, I want to know the reason and then also heal the pain. So then we went into the session, and well, at the end of the session, you told me both the reason why the pain was there, and then we also healed the pain, which was amazing because I hadn't been pain free in a very long time. In fact, I wasn't even sure, like I couldn't even comprehend how that could have happened, like in one session, how the pain that I had for so many years, how could it like just disappear like with a magic wand. And that night I I couldn't even like sleep because I had been carrying that pain like in my armpit, like around my shoulder region for so many years, and I used to like treat it like a very precious, like a very expensive Michael Kors handbag, and now suddenly the handbag is like stolen, it's gone, and I'm like, wait, what's going on? And I couldn't even I was so confused at night to even go to bed because I had been used to like sleeping in a certain posture, making adjustments and living around it. And suddenly it's gone. And there is this void, and it was just unbelievable. Like, yeah,
Okay, cool. Yeah, so just to like recap some of it, in sessions we go in and we set a clear intention so that we can shift the energies around it, any subconscious beliefs and any energetic blocks that we need to move. We do that, and then we do the quantum healing. So that was precisely the question. It's like if you had a magic wand, what would you use that wand to wave for, right? And I love that how quickly you were going from, I just want to know why this has been happening for like, if I'm correct, it's 13 plus years that by the time we met, right?
yes,
This pain has been going on for 13 plus years, which I did not know, obviously. And even when we booked the session, I had no idea what the session was going to be about.
yes,
So even for me, it was just like in that moment is when I'm coming to know about this. And I don't think we even spoke about this pain being 13 years long, or I just knew it was a long term. Like I just knew it was chronic. And I grew up with a lot of chronic pain, so I understand the gravity of it, the all the emotional, financial commitments that go into just like maintaining and managing the pain, especially if anything is chronic, right? So that was my understanding. So I only knew about all these things much later. I was like, oh wait, really? That was like 13-year-old pain was a revelation I had much later. Having said that, so you had this for like such a long time. Can you talk about what was your like the quality of your life like? What was the emotional, financial cost that went into just managing the pain, your life, your ambitions around that pain, and you were also coding, right? So you had to like use the keyboard a lot. Did that interfere with your work? How was that like?
yeah. I think when it first started, it was back in 2011, and I was working for American Airlines back then, for my employer. That's when it was most interfering like with my work because of the ergonomic position. So what I had done was I did a like an ergonomic assessment that was offered by my employer at the workplace, and then we made some adjustments to my desk. We got like a different sort of like a keyboard tray where the keyboard would be like much closer to my body, and then there is like a 90-degree right angle by like the shoulder to the elbow and then elbow to the wrist. So we did all these things, and then I was also going to like I went to my primary care physician, then I who referred me to a couple of specialists. Then I tried physical therapy for some time. Then I tried going to a chiropractor for some time. And then In 2013 I got pregnant. So then my OBGYN, she said that, oh, this is like a pregnancy related carpal tunnel. So, and then so she labeled pregnancy in front of the whatever that I was trying to still figure out. And then I was kind of like stuck with the diagnosis, and I was stuck with my OBGYN for a while because all these other providers that I was going to, like my chiropractor, uh, and then my physical therapist, so they were all like, oh, this is now pregnancy related something something, so we don't really like, or we are not qualified to treat this, or you have to like go seek a different kind of a provider. And also during my pregnancy, my OBGYN had also suggested that I start doing some prenatal yoga at the time. So, which was like the first time I started doing yoga ever. And I did find some relief while doing the yoga. So, even after the childbirth, I continued like going to the yoga sessions, and I was able to like manage the pain, or like work around the pain a little bit, because I used to find pain relief then. And then later on, much later on, I found an lymphatic drainage therapist who was helping me, and her sessions had helped me. But then what ended up happening was, so after I have the lymphatic drainage therapist, like the massage therapist session, it used to go away for some time, maybe for a couple of hours. And then the next time when the pain comes back, it used to, I feel like it used to come back with so much of vengeance, because it's like for a slight couple of hours I was living pain free. And then when it used to come back and it used to shoot up, I felt like, oh my god, this is so much more like unbearable, like hell. It was, I should have just left it the way it was even in the first place, because it was like a, maybe like a dull achy, I got used to it sort of a pain. And then suddenly like there is like this dip, or the period where it disappears, and then when it comes back, and then it just shoots up to the top. But then I did find relief in those sessions, so I used to continue to see her, probably I would say twice a month, because it was much of a drive for me where I was living from my house. Like just to get to her house, it used to be in the traffic, like an hour, and then coming back an hour. And say I spent an hour with her, then it's like a 3 hour thing, even on a weekend. And it was so much of a like a time commitment for that. And eventually what ended up happening was in 2020, when there was this COVID lockdown, she had also like, she stopped seeing patients because of the lockdown. So then there was a, like a period of time, more than 3 or 4 months, when I had not seen her because she was not seeing anybody. And then I kind of got used to it. So that's when I, like maybe around September of 2020, I kind of even stopped seeing her.
Yeah, yeah, I have. By the way, everything you've tried, for those who are watching, those are great resources. By the way, like all these things help. Like lymph therapy, obviously PT helps, your doctors help, um, and I have known a lot of people who have gone through similar journeys for like different kinds of pains, and different levels and intensities of pain. And also I have done that for myself as well, not necessarily your same level of intensity or the same area of pain or anything like that, right? But I can totally relate to all of that, having to travel 1 hour for a 1 hour appointment, and then it's like 3 hours, and then the planning and like all these things. So I think earlier when we did the math, if we just took the lymph therapist, because my understanding from our previous conversations is that the lymph therapy was the one that had the most relief for you, right? So if you could have kept it, that's probably what you would have wanted to have gone to, almost like for 13 years if you knew about it, if you had the access, if no one was shutting it down, right? So we did the rough math. It was like 3 to 5K per year. And so even if you're doing a conservative math, it's like 3K per year, 13 years, it's close to like 40K. That's just from one health practitioner who can help you. Uh, would you say, like, obviously it has to be multiples from my perception, because I have similar experiences, it has to be multiples of that, right? Across the 13 years of like pain management.
Yeah, I would say so. And also, so there is this, like in United States, those in network, out of network, in coverage,
Yeah.
out of coverage. So finding a provider and then hoping that they will be in network, so it will be much less out of my pocket. And then there is also all the financial commitment around buying like a wrist splint or a brace and all those things, sort of a equipment. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's a quite a journey. And I have much respect for anyone who has like gone through any kind of like chronic pain and still managed to be a functioning member of the society, and especially like a high performer like yourself. So that was your experience before, and then you have the session. Obviously, we don't have to dive into the session. We'll just like skip forward. And so after the session, I love how you jokingly said you lost your Michael Kors handbag. So now you've lost your Michael Kors handbag,
Yeah.
and now you don't know what to do because you're feeling a little bit like, should I have lost it? Is it going to
Yeah.
come back? And I think that's the other part of it, which is when the pain subsides, um, and you're used to it coming back with a vengeance. I think that's another thing that most people with chronic anything, even if it's headache, right? Like chronic headaches, chronic stomachache, whatever it could be. Anytime we try to manage the pain instead of getting to the root cause, again, getting to the root cause is not always possible. Sometimes you don't even know that option exists. Sometimes you don't have access to the people who can help you with it. But when we manage the pain, which I've done a lot, I grew up with like one of the things was like intense headache, and it was always that thing of like, okay, I can take the headache pills tonight. Is tonight important, or like 2 nights from now is important, because it's gonna come back with a vengeance. So am I sacrificing, like, if this is a Monday, am I sacrificing Wednesday and Thursday for it, or do I want to just sit with it and like be functional Wednesday, Thursday? So I get that. And I get why after a session where the pain has dissolved, you're like literally sleepless. You're trying to figure out, am I in the safe area? Is this safe?
Yeah. Yeah, we actually, I remember we did talk about this during one of my follow-up sessions too. Like, because I was so confused about, I was just waiting to see, because I told you there were, even after I had seen the lymphatic drainage therapist and had a session with her, there would be like a period, sometimes 12 hours, sometimes 18 hours, wherein I'm not with the pain and then the pain shoots up. So I was like waiting to see, is this like that one of those like periods where there is void and it's like blank and nothing's getting recorded by the brain? So I was just waiting and waiting, and then it never came back. So it's like, wow. Like, I didn't know if it was too soon to celebrate that it is a like an accomplishment, that it's permanent, or if it's like just that lull period and then it's going to come back. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually remember the email too. I think you just like, um, you came back after 4 or 5 days, and then this is sort of what you told me. You're like, I was just waiting to see if it was gonna come back, and I still can't believe it, but I wanna see how working even longer term would look like. And then we never actually talked about that pain for a long time, which I understood as it's healed and it has stayed healed, and then you went on to conquering other quests in your life. So now I'm very curious about talking about that. But I just want to make sure that you feel complete. Is there anything else that you want to talk about this pain before we move on to your next? You have like a Sanskrit gold medal, LinkedIn presence, and going on stages and speaking. You have like a bunch of wonderful things coming up. But anything else you want to share before we move forward to the next one?
No, I guess we have covered it all around the the one healing session that I had for like my chronic under the armpit shoulder region pain on the right side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Uh, Perfect. So then we move into like I think we move into like a 6 month or something at that point, right? Or like a year long. I don't remember. But
We did the year long after because I couldn't believe, and I was like, wait, if if this has happened with one obsession, then maybe I should like just like get the best baggage out there.
right. Thank you for the trust. Yeah, I had no idea. I had, like I said, I usually don't have the full picture of like what the
Yeah.
ripple effects of the session is. So this is great. I'm enjoying this call. Okay, cool. So yeah, cool. So we start. We don't have to necessarily go in a linear order because you've been doing so many things. So whatever interests you, we'll just talk about it. So obviously the things that come to mind for me, you have the Sanskrit, you have the LinkedIn presence, you have the all the speaking gigs that you've been beautifully doing. You've been building your social media presence, and yeah, take your pick, and we'll just chat about it. Yeah.
Yeah, we can start with the my speaking engagements.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
We just take the 2024 alone. I have had a lot of speaking engagements in person and online, like virtual. I would say close to more than a dozen, like maybe 12, 13. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll set the context a little bit. We had a session that was focused on the speaking gig for the first time, and I think we had maybe one or two more after that because it was a string of events. So tell me a little bit about like how this came into our energy coaching container, and what was the challenge? What were you looking to solve for, or what were you looking to achieve? And what happened in between and afterwards? Yeah, and I'll help you. I can
Yeah.
fill in some context. Yeah.
Okay. So around July of 2023 was when the first time I received a speaking engagement for speaking on the topic data privacy for the enterprise, and it was conducted by the IAPP of Austin chapter, which is IAPP is nothing but International Association of Privacy Professionals, and it was in the domain office of Amazon's domain office, which is like a huge, beautiful office up north here. And I
Here
went there
in
here in
Texas,
Austin, yes,
Austin.
Austin, Texas,
Okay.
yeah. Then I went there as a speaker, and it was like beside their cafeteria where they had like a huge sort of like a conference room, and there was like a stage sort of a thing, and all the speakers were sitting there, and it was a panel of four speakers. So three of them were men, and I was the woman, and the moderator was a woman as well. So then when I was really excited for this cause I had been working so hard on like building my presence around data privacy and coming across as like this authoritative and credible source for data privacy related information and resources. So I was like thrilled when I got this call and this opportunity to be a speaker. Uh, and then I went there. There's honestly like if you were going during the evening hours, there's so much traffic on one Mopac North, and I live like south, and so I have to take the highway. And in July in Texas, it's like really hot in the traffic. I made the drive. I went there and I was like tired and exhausted. But then I settled in. Uh, However, when I was on the stage speaking, when I was given an opportunity to speak, or when the moderator would ask me like, oh, what is your opinion about this, or where do you think the industry is headed, or what is the trend that you're seeing, I would like start off, and I would have it all formulated in my head that okay, this is what these are my talking points I'm going to speak. So at the end of the session, I want my audience to take away like these like five key points, that this is what the speaker had said. So I would start off and I would formulate those in my head, but then somehow I was like feeling so like incompetent in that moment to be able to deliver what I had formulated and what I had in fact practiced. I had practiced well for this session, and it was not even like a rapid fire where I didn't know what the moderator would ask me. So it was like a rehearsed session as well, wherein the moderator had shared like these are the set of questions that would be asked. So if you could like please prepare for these talking points. So then when I went there, and whenever the mic used to come to my hand, first I was like really excited and I wanted to get the mic. But then as soon as I like speak one or two sentences, I used to be like, oh no, maybe I'm like coming across as like this imposter, wherein, or maybe people are thinking, oh, like, what is she talking about? She isn't making any sense. Or, wait, is she like trying to say something important? So I used to have all these thoughts that used to keep coming to me, and then I was had this like intense urge to like pass the mic like right away to like the person who was on my right or to the person who was on my left. And then so I would like maybe blurt out, say like one or two sentences, and then I would be like in this intense sort of a whirlwind sort of a um, like a uh, tussle in my head. And then I would be, oh, I should give the mic away to this person, maybe he has something important or valuable to offer than what I had to offer. So I was not at all believing in myself that I had something important and valuable to offer, and that's why they had invited me to come be the speaker. And that's what the audience was also waiting to hear, because they had all like I was not ready to believe that the audience were willing to see that I had something important to offer and they were here to learn from me. So I did like to say the least, I did not enjoy the experience because of like how I was thinking that I had nothing important or nothing valuable to offer to those who were like attending the session as audience.
Okay, so let me, yeah, I took a, I love taking notes with my iPad, but that's a lot. I mean, even as you're recounting that experience, that's a lot because I can clearly see how you were logically you're flagging all these signals where they want to hear you speak. That's why you're invited. But then the energy of what you're feeling is like nobody wants to listen to what I have to say. Why should they? I'm not, in your words, it's like I'm incompetent and like not good enough. Is this even gonna? Can they even understand all these things? And I think I've actually seen this in a lot of. I've obviously seen a lot of that in me, but I've also seen a lot of that in pretty much all my friends. Like it this, irrespective of like role, gender, whatever. And especially, I've seen it a lot more in people who are like high achievers, high performers, because one, there's an internal standard that's really high up there. And you're the one who's constantly like at every step of the way, you're like measuring yourself against that. Even when others are telling you that was awesome, tell me more, and you're like, really? Like, how can I tell more and be more impressive? And now you're like shut down.
Yeah.
So okay, so this was the experience
Yes.
that made you think, okay, I need to bring this and look at it from an energy perspective, or like, let's go into take this into the coaching container and see what we can do, right?
Yeah. So after this session had happened, I mean, not like the speaking session had happened in July, in then in the January of the following year, I had another big speaking engagement. And this time it was in the Long Center in Austin. It's like close to Austin downtown. And this time it was like in a huge auditorium. It was not like in somebody's office's cafeteria or some conference room. So this time it had like this huge stage with lights and um, s- speakers and audio equipment, and like, yeah, it was like the professional speaking sort of a thing. So then when I got to know that I was selected to speak on this panel in January, that's when I we had this session. I had brought this up with you that I went through a lot of confusion and turmoil back in July when I was speaking at Amazon's office. That even though I had prepared so well and I had so much to offer, but when the moment came, I was not willing to like believe in myself that I had something valuable to offer. So I was in this struggling with wanting to say and then thinking, oh, I don't have anything valuable to offer, and then wanting to give like the mic away to somebody else. So that's when then we had a healing session wherein we looked at a point where we went back in time when I was about, like, say 3 years old, where I had in my school, I had won a lot of trophies for like dictation, drawing, then I had won something for math, and then one more, which I clearly don't remember now, but there were four. So it was a very memorable day for a 3-year-old that I was receiving like so many trophies from. I went to a Catholic school in India, so from our sister, and then so we went back in time to that moment wherein I wasn't like, while I was receiving all these trophies and while I was feeling very happy and proud, I was also sensing a lot of things around from my little other 3-year-old friends who were like feeling jealous and who were like and then I was wanting to like dim my light and wanting to be their friend. I didn't want to be like abandoned and not like live as somebody who doesn't have any friends. So I was seeing this pattern of while I was sensing all some sort of negativity from my other little 3-year-old friends, at the same time I was like wanting to like fit in, and then wanting to like be there for continue to be their friend, and I did not want to be like somebody who is abandoned and has no friends. So that was one pattern we looked at, which is and then during the session you also helped me see that while there were a set of friends who were like this, who had caught my attention back then in that moment, but there were also a set of friends whom I was like greatly inspiring, and they were silently admiring me, that I was greatly inspiring that little set of friends which I had not seen. So that was one like shift in mindset that helped me. Yeah, and also when I was receiving receiving all those trophies on that day when I was 3 years old, it felt amazing to me. But then it wasn't the same after that. After when I was receiving more and more trophies later on in the further years, I I still felt like maybe I don't deserve it, or maybe I'm not worthy enough of receiving an award. And I still couldn't tell like where that was coming in from. Was it because of all these negativity I was sensing, all these negative vibes from the folks around me who were so I really couldn't tell.
That is as
And
this as like all the negative stuff you're perceiving as an adult now, or are we still
no,
doing it?
as a kid,
Child. Okay, got it.
as a child,
Got it.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I couldn't tell. But then after the session, I could see like there was a way wherein I could like safely have like this bubble or a container wherein I could still sense the negativity that is coming in like as an adult, but I can selectively let what will impact me through that bubble or through that shield. So that was one thing we did in the session. And also the other way which I had not looked at, and which you had helped me see, was like all these adults who were like sending in some sort of a negativity or jealousy. It was like their way of wishing well for me. It is just that they had like evolved in a certain way up until this point. So it also, they still are wishing well for me, but it is like their style of wishing well for me. So like having these things and looking at them closely had helped me a lot. And after this, a couple of weeks after we had done this healing session, I received a Rising Star Award with my current employer. And like I had already mentioned to you, I went through a layoff and I was frantically trying to search a new job, and I was going through multiple rejections. So I was already feeling very dejected and disappointed at the fact that I was not able to convert these interviews into a role, into an offer. And then suddenly, when it came as a total surprise in September of 2023, when we had and company wide all hands, and I was recognized at the company wide all hands. I did not even know that I was nominated for this award. So usually there is like this huge slide, and you like read people's names that are on the slide, and then once you see your name, you walk up to the stage to like stand and you get your award. So I was looking, and then I was reading, oh, I see Mason's name, oh, I see that person's name. So I was, and there are like these round tables where you sit with your team, and I was telling my friends, oh, I see that person's name. And then suddenly I saw my name scroll up to the top. It's like a scroll. And I was like, oh my God, I see my name. And at that moment, I was so happy. And I felt like I was worthy enough to receive this award. And I felt completely where, wherein I can receive this award without any like a feeling of, oh, maybe I'm not competent or maybe it's not worthy. So I did not have any of those sorts of feelings, and I felt like complete, and I felt worthy of receiving this recognition, and I felt that I completely deserved this award for my hard work. So I was so happy and proud. I went on to the stage and I received the award.
I love that story very much. Yeah, there's a lot that's happening there. Okay, to reflect and recap, so that I also to see make sure that I understood. So the first one is the dimming your light to belong with the tribe that you're with, right? So that is a very common. I mean, I feel like that's a very universal human experience, but also one that it's not just the desire to belong, but like what sacrifice are you willing to make, even to the point of like dimming your light. And that I see a lot with like high performers. It starts as young as when you're 3 in your case, and I've seen like even further in like younger years, and like it doesn't matter the year, the age doesn't really matter. It's the energy, how perceptive the kids are. Obviously you are a very perceptive kid, to feel that, oh, this is how my 3-year-old like Teletubbies are like feeling, right? Like for you to feel that, and then to modify your behavior. So that alone is a huge win. I am so glad that you worked through that, and to go from a place of and I remember one more thing about your July experience that you had earlier shared with me, which was you had a lot of these like insights to share with the rest of the audience, the moderator, the panel, but you couldn't. But then other people in the panel were like easily able to share their insights, and even though objectively sometimes it might not be as impressive as yours, but you are the one who was holding back, thinking and self like having this like self doubt and all that stuff, right? So to go from the point of like actually having a lot of qualifications and expertise and knowledge, and like not feeling like that's worth something, to then receiving an award like in such a short period of time as soon as you work through it, and then actually feeling like, yeah, this is mine. Like, this is mine. This is not someone else's. I'm not an imposter, but this is mine. And then like owning up to it, that's a huge win. So I love this story. I know like healing a 13-year-old pain in yourself is the one that'll get on the top of the list for you. This is as big as that one in my mind, because to feel like you're worthy, to feel like you don't have to dim your light, there's a lot. There's a lot to that. Um, and then yeah, and I loved, and this is the reason I loved like the energetic coaching, because it's not just a mindset shift of you don't have to dim your light. We also shifted your energy, which then shifted how you were behaving, how you were being, how you're feeling, and that is how the changes happened really fast. There's this exponential effect to it, and I love that how you just like go out into the world and then just demonstrate the effects of the sessions. So I really love that. And so that happened in January.
Yes, the other session, which was in the Long Center, which was an auditorium, and it was like a professional speaking stage. And yeah, this happened in January.
Great. And since then, how many speaking events have you been part of?
Yeah.
What has your experience been like since then?
Yeah, since the January of last year to like just if we just take the 2024 alone, I have had a lot of speaking engagements in person and online, like virtual. I would say close to more than a dozen, like maybe 12, 13. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot. That's almost one a month. And also, what has your? Let's talk about the quality of your experience, right? Because you've always been qualified to be a part of this. The only reason you didn't was because you didn't feel like you're worthy enough. But now
Yeah.
that shifted, you're actually showing up. And also, as you're showing up, how have you been feeling? So obviously, was it a one-off feeling of like, no, I belong, this is great, I'm giving a great speaking, like I'm part of a great speaking gig, or you've been enjoying every single thing, or you've been enjoying most of those presentations?
Yeah, I have been enjoying like most of those, especially like the part where like towards the end, sometimes the sessions are designed such a way that they ask you. Most of the sessions are pre-rehearsed, like we know what we'll be talking about. We'll be like, I can rehearse at home before I go and speak to my audience, or sometimes if it's like a virtual, then I'm rehearsing with a slide deck and I'm preparing. But then the part that I kind of have started enjoying more and more is like towards the end there is a Q&A from the audience, which like an impromptu, because there is no preparation, like you don't know what your audience is going to ask you. It could be like based on the talk, or it could be something that they were like wanting to know, like where is like Gen AI heading. So it could be something as random, maybe something related to the talk or unrelated to the talk. So I have been enjoying those as well. And as and when I have been like speaking more and more, I have become like a more professional at fielding those questions, especially like when, so they tell you when you're like mic'd up, they tell you that if that person is like asking from like the behind the room, and nobody on the like the audio system, they can hear that person, so you have to like rephrase that person's question first, because you're the one who is mic'd up, like that person doesn't have the mic, and then you answer. So I've been and then that part I have been enjoying, the impromptu part, wherein sometimes it feels like I had already mentioned about this in the talk, but maybe they were like listening and then they just like went off to some dreamy place, and then they're like caught up now and they want to know like, wait, what's so then I know, okay, this person, so I had already addressed this in the talk, so I'll just repeat what I said and then I add more context to it, and then that kind of settles. And also when I'm answering them, and then I like to see like this glimmer in their eyes as I like burst through that myth or that question. So that part also I have been enjoying, and as I have been speaking more and more, these people like my when we go back to my 3-year-old self and that moment and that instance where I was receiving all these trophies, and there were like this little couple of group friends who were like silently admiring, and who for whom they felt like I was inspiring them. As and when I'm speaking more and more, these people are coming into more awareness, wherein they're more vocal about letting me know that I have inspired them, or that they are admiring me for how I had answered a particular question, or for how I had spoken about a particular topic on the stage. So that is also something I've been enjoying a lot.
Okay, I did not know this. I love this all the more because you went from who wants to hear what I have to say to now like commanding such a strong presence and managing the stage now, like making sure that people can hear the questions that have been asked and then how the way you're showing up to answer. And clearly you've been enjoying all the impromptu and the Q&A and the rapid fires, and that's awesome. I love that. Cool. Anything else you want to just talk about it before we move on to the next one?
On the speaking,
Yeah.
no, I guess we're good.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So that was a huge win, obviously, and you've it hasn't been a one-off win just like all your previous ones. It has been a shift that has stayed with you, and now like your reality is like completely different before and after, and you've done like 12 plus 13 plus sessions, and you've been enjoying every single one of them, and you're going to do more in 2025 and
Yes, I
beyond.
have a few more lined up for
Yeah.
2025. Yeah.
Already lined up. There you go. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Love that. Cool. All right. So now we looked into your speaking gig and how the transformation around that happened. Let's see what else we want to pick next. So you want to talk about the LinkedIn social
Yeah.
media brand presence building? Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's dive into it.
As I started posting more and more videos, then I built more and more visibility on the platform. So it was like a cycle, I should say, that building visibility and then getting more speaking engagements, and then more speaking engagements led to more visibility. So that's where I am right now. Yeah.
Just to give some context, and I want to hear more from you. Um, you had noticed that people who are in the same space as you, same scenario during the layoff, but with a social media presence, and how easy it was for them compared to you, and you still had some reservations around like showing up. And there's a story involving Priya, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a fictional character or an actual
No,
person.
she's real. I hope
She's
she's
real.
not.
Okay. Okay. So we're using actual names. Great. So wherever you are, Priya, there's a story involving Priya and how you went from not having a social media presence to then what happened. Let's look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, I was still struggling, like right around the alignment call, and then I had found my full-time employment. Uh, and then, like during the layoff, what I had seen, because almost all of my team was laid off, and I saw that they had like these huge network that they had built on LinkedIn, wherein while on one hand I was struggling to even like get interview calls, and once I get them, to convert them into full-time offers, on the other hand my colleagues, or my ex-colleagues I should say, they had built their presence so wonderfully over the years, like nurturing network, that even before the job posting would go live and be posted, they would just be backfilled because their network or somebody in their network had told them that this is opening up and you are like such a good fit because I know you're like capable of doing these things. And they would just get these calls, and they were able to convert these jobs and roles even before like the job posting went live. Because when I was laid off, it was so bad that if it had gone live, they would like get 1,000 applicants in like just one day. So it's impossible to for even for the hiring manager, the poor hiring manager, to comb through all those resumes and like get to me, like get to, even though I think like I'm a gem of a resume, but he may have received like 1999 other gems for the same job posting. So that's when I was struggling with building like social media presence, especially on LinkedIn, even though I had created my LinkedIn account way back when I had joined American Airlines in 2010, and I had kept it kind of dormant, and I had just like my network of my colleagues whom I had met and I had worked with over the past 10 years. And I, like I also mentioned earlier, I never had the time to do like these things on social media or build presence on platforms and things like that, because I was like really busy, heads down, work and then home and take care of kids and do this and do that. And I had, so I barely made any time for this, and that's when I felt like the blow was really hard when during the layoff period, and just like right in front of my eyes, I could see my friends who had like these good LinkedIn presence and good network were better off, even though we were all in the same boat on the layoff boat. So then I had told you that I had some ambitions around how I wanted to build my presence on LinkedIn. But then when I had mentioned this to you in one of the sessions, you said, "Wait, I'm sensing this as like a very large thing. So we should do a session by itself." And you recommended that we do the next session by itself. So then we did the session. It was more like a coaching session, I would say, where we talked through multiple things. And then after I had after I had landed in my full-time role after the layoff, I was not very active on LinkedIn, but I wasn't that dormant like I was back in 2010, because I used to post these updates. For example, when I had received the Rising Star Award with my employer, I did post a picture of me standing on the stage and receiving the award and how happy I felt. Cause and I genuinely wrote everything in the post about how worthy and deserving I was when I received the award. So I was like posting here and there infrequently, but then eventually, like in the long term, what my idea was to build some resources for the folks preparing for an interview for my role in the data privacy role, because I also saw when I was personally struggling to convert my interviews into an offer, that there weren't any resources for to understand what sort of questions would be asked, or how you are expected to answer those questions, or because it is such a vast field, and what privacy means for like somebody at big tech may not mean the same for somebody at a startup, and it may not mean the same for somebody who's like a mid-tier company. And there was like nothing out there about what it meant. So we talked about in my session, like in the long term, how I wanted to like establish myself in the space as a thought leader. And I know I had a lot of uh, uh, what is the right word, like lot of
Reservations.
reservations on using the word thought leader. Anyway, I had a lot of reservations even with the word, but eventually we moved past all of those, and I wanted to establish myself. And I did mention also during the session that I was very clear on wanting to use video as the medium for transmitting this information and all these resources on how to prepare for the interview, just because I was not feeling very uh, connected with long form writing and content, and I wanted to put myself out there in the world in the form of video. And also, like I said, there were like no like literally zero resources or zero of anything for anybody wanting to prepare for a data privacy interview. So we talked about it, we had this session, we explored like a number of things on how I could build my presence and be a thought leader in this space. And after the session, after a couple of weeks after the session, the Data Privacy Day was coming up in January of 2024. And Data Privacy Day is comes every year. It comes in the last week of January. This time it's January 28th of 2025. So
Can
when Data
I?
Privacy,
So we are moving into the Priya story,
yeah,
I'm guessing. Okay, so
yes.
I want to do a little bit of recap here because you gave a lot here, by the way. And yeah, so one thing I wanted to point out, which is going to be like you've done this so many times with me, so you are like, oh, I already know this. So this is for the people who are listening and like for the first time, right? So that's the beauty of these energy-based coaching sessions because you have the full freedom to bring up any topic at any moment. It could be the last 5 minutes, and we've actually if we talk about the last one, like you actually brought up really intense ones in the last 5 minutes of the session, and we actually worked through it really quickly, right? So, and then things like this, it's like, hey, like that needs a lot more because it's not a quick thing to shift because there's a lot more to it than you're able to perceive right now. So let's actually dedicate a whole session. So the freedom for you to bring up any topic in the session and the freedom for me to be able to say this deserves a whole hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours, because sometimes we do hour long, sometimes we do like double hours, right? So it's that like being able to like tap into the gravity, the energy of it and say this deserves this much time. So you already have two experiences in your mind right now, which is like one that was brought up and then we had to dedicate a whole session, another one which was brought up and we just cleared through it, right? So that I just wanted to point out that that's a unique experience when it comes to energy based coaching, which you might not find in general coaching or like mindset coaching. You just can't do that type of a thing, right? So that's the first thing I want to point out. And sometimes, in some cases, you're already working on something, and your subconscious will just like come up with other stories just to be like divert, so that because we're like going deeper and deeper, so something else might come up just so that it'll act as a diversion, right? So there's that as well. But in an energy coaching, that's really where I can guide you through by saying that is important. Let's hold onto that, but like let's like just like push that to the side. We'll like keep going in the initial intention that we set out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a common
Yeah.
experience. You're used to it, so I just want to call that out because by now
Yeah.
you're like so used to it. It's secondhand for you when we go into the
Yeah,
session.
I think so too. I think the LinkedIn, when it first came up in the previous session, it must have been like a distraction because you said it was a huge thing. Because even by itself, when we did the session, there was like so much to unpack, even in that standalone session.
Yeah, yeah, and I liked how we took the time to look into we weren't just looking into okay, yeah, like you want to build a brand presence, let's go do this, like let's hustle. Like I love hustling, like I love, like if you let me work like 16 hours a day or just like remove sleep from the equation, I'll be the happiest person, right? But I love hustling, but that's not the point. The point is you have to find a way to express yourself that brings you joy so that you're not like burning out, because if you're a high performer, you've hit that wall of burnout multiple times and then you wise up, and sometimes you don't wise up, but for the people that work with me, I want them to wise up, right? So what we looked into was what is your modality of self-expression and like what gets you excited, right? Like what do you want your audience to learn from you? And for that, what is the best way to present that? Is it text based? Is it video based? And do you enjoy? Which one do you enjoy? Do you want to go and do this as an experiment? So those are the things that we worked on, which was the foundation, because once the foundation was good, then you just like built like 100-story building on top of it. Like
Yeah.
we had the foundation right, and you built it, and the foundation could support, things weren't collapsing, and you just like kept building, and now you're like now I want to know the next story. But I just want to point that out because it's very important to be like, I have this desire to teach people or to like educate people on this. That's a beautiful desire. Knowing how to honor that in a way that you build beautiful foundations and then start building is very important than just saying, this person with like 100K followers has, that person has, they just do text based, or they do it this way, and I'm just gonna, I want 100K, so I'm gonna go do everything that this person did. Never works, especially not for high performers, because you have a very specific set of desires, intentions, and if you're going to follow someone else's, you're not going to have the energy or the time or the focus left to follow yours, and it's
Yeah.
a waste of time, right? So we don't want that. So that session was a beautiful session because we came up with a plan. It was a beautiful, like, we did the visioning of like what needs to happen, and then we converted the vision into actionable plan, and now you go off into the world, right? And
Yeah.
another thing I want to add to that is, in my personal experience, when I have been like, I want to build my presence, I want to put the my services, I want to put my thoughts out there. I have a great team right now. Like they'll just be like, whatever, Shami, like our point, our only thing is to support the way you want to express yourself, and we'll like keep strategizing around that, right? But I've also had the fortune of experiencing the other side of like when I've been wanting to write more, publish more text-based articles, or like, hey, like I want to see if I'm good with. I've given a, in my mind, I'd be like, I've given a lot of talks, workshops, and let's see if that translates to this field as well. And then being told, no, that's not how you're supposed to do, this is not how you're supposed to do, as if there's one way to do life, like that, like when you get the not so great experience, you actually end up appreciating the great experiences. So I had the fortune of like people just like absolutely bulldozing my needs and then just giving me bullshit advice based on what worked for someone else, with no regards of like how I want to show up for my people. So I, that is to say, the point of like the most important point in our coaching session was how well aware you were, right? Like you have to be aware of your needs, your desires, and how you want to show up. So then it becomes easy for me to be your coach, to be like, okay, with that awareness, let's take that to the next level. Now we have the awareness, and obviously there's a bit of like help guiding and coaching to get you to that place of awareness. But then once we get there, then the next level of like, now let's build. Now we know what Swati needs. Now we know what Swati loves, right? So now
Yeah.
let's go build it out. And so obviously before you build it out, there comes a funny episode, or I don't know if it's funny. The way you said it was funny, but go ahead. I want to know more
Yeah.
about this story. Yeah.
So then after we did the session on LinkedIn alone, and then a couple of weeks later, my friend Priya, she sends me a message on LinkedIn, a direct message, and she says, "Hey, the data privacy day is coming up, and I have. Can you record like a short video that says, what does answering this question? What does data privacy mean to you?" And then send me the recording. Don't worry about like having the right kind of lighting, mic, and all these things. Just use your phone, your smartphone, and then just record. Put it in a selfie mode. Just record what data privacy means to you, and then email it to me. I am compiling. I have asked a couple of other privacy professionals also. So I am going to edit and compile this video and make it into like a 3 minute long video. And I will tag all of you on LinkedIn and I will post it. And when I got this message, I was so super excited from Priya that she's asking me for a video. First of all, I went and I thanked Priya and I said, "Thank you so much for like considering me as one of like the elite privacy professionals in this field, wherein you feel it is important for my voice to be heard and you want everybody to know my opinion of what I think data privacy means to me." And then I thanked her, and the very next day I recorded the video just like she said. I made like some 20-second video, and then I emailed it to her. And then I was waiting that she will compile this, edit this, and she will post it, and nothing happened. She she didn't say anything how it is going, or and then the data privacy day came, and data privacy day went, and she did nothing for me. And then I pinged her again, like, Priya, what happened? I had sent you the video, and you were like planning to compile this with five other privacy pros, and you were going to like release this 3 minute long video. What happened? So then she said, oh, that none of the others responded except for you, and I just couldn't like make a video of just you and post it. So then I was like, what? Then I was like, I was really frustrated at Pia, and then I was like, oh my God, nobody is like, I had thought my friend will do something for me, and here she's telling, oh, nobody had ever responded and given me the video except for you, so I can't do anything for you. So then it's like, okay, now it's serious. It's I have to take the matter seriously into my own hands. And then what I did was, I'll just post this to my feed and I'll see what happens. Like, at the worst, what will happen? It will be like, it will not, maybe one or two people might see, and they might not like comment or do anything with it, and it will just not be visible in the feed. But at least because I had put all this effort in thinking and then recording that video, at least I'll just see what happens. And then that was when I took this leap of faith. I took this courage, made up my mind, and then I courageously posted on my LinkedIn feed in February, like right after the data privacy day had passed. And then something interesting happened. Actually, I got a lot of engagement on my one video, which like the small tiny video of what data privacy means to me. And a lot of people like commented and they said, oh wow, this is so clearly explained on what data privacy means to you. Or they said, oh, this is so useful, or this is so valuable, this is so insightful. And then also, what other thing ended up happening was, my colleagues whom I had not worked with in many many years, they had started sending me like direct messages, and they said, oh, the other day we saw your video, and I just thought of saying hi, and how things are going, and how things are with you. So I was like, wow, something interesting is happening here, that I had just recorded this video, and it wasn't even like my idea to, even though I had this idea in my mind for a very long time to record videos and post, but then the actual video that I had posted was actually Priya's idea. At Priya's request, I had recorded, and I had just posted because I wanted my video to see the light of the day. And then I saw that there was a lot of engagement and there was a lot of interest. And then I started recording videos. Then I did like a cookie series video, a three-part video, wherein I talk about my real world experience, hands-on experience on how I had handled cookies while I was at Twitter. And then I talked about some more videos around data privacy. And then I started posting these videos like to my LinkedIn feed, and I talked about like data maps and things like that. So everything I used to post, it was either wherein I had like hands-on experience working for one of my employers, and it wasn't some academia paper or research that I was citing. I was just speaking, bringing it from my own experience on what was it that I did, or how was it that I handled when I had this thing. And that, I guess that's where I struck, I should say, struck gold, because um, there was that piece of information, or that missing link, that nobody was filling in the industry. Like, nobody was trying to fill in that gap of what really, like, what would like a data privacy architect do in their role. And then more and more people started like reaching out to me and asking me like, oh, like, what do they really do? It means on the job description, it means they need to know like these 10 things, but then in real life, like, what is it that you really do? So that's how I as I started posting more and more videos, then I built more and more visibility on the platform. And then also that also led to more speaking engagements, because now more people whom these content was reaching out to, sometimes it's just like reposted by my third degree network connections, whom like I don't even know and whom we don't even have any common friends. And then that's how I was, so it was like a cycle, I should say, that building visibility and then getting more speaking engagements, and then more speaking engagements led to more visibility. So that's where I am right now. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, if I was Priya, I would want to like extend an olive branch to you. Like, this has become such a funny story around. I'm glad there are many Priyas in the world. Like, no one will know.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. So, I love. Would it be fair to say that if the same thing happened and you didn't have the coaching session, you might not have felt strong enough to take that video and post it on your social media presence? But because now you had a plan and now you had this like digital artifact that couldn't see the light of the world, and you're like, no, I already have a plan. I was going to do this anyway. So let me just like go ahead with it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that would be fair to say that I would still have recorded the video for Priya, irrespective of whether we had the session or not, because Priya is my friend. She is still my friend. And because a friend is asking, I would do it for a friend. But then, yeah, me going and posting it to my own feed, I wouldn't have done that. Yeah.
Right. Perfect. Yeah. So that was the beginning of the snowball effect. And like you said, now you've got into this beautiful flywheel of like, I'm posting, I'm getting more speaking engagements. And then those speaking engagements give me more things to think about. And now, as much reservation you had around being a thought leader, you are that in your field now, which is amazing, right? I I absolutely love this story because now we have like opened up this like doorway for you to share your expertise in a way that people want to hear, and you're getting constant feedback of like, oh, I didn't know this, thank you for explaining that. Because I've seen some of your videos, and obviously you've shared some of the comments that you get and how fulfilling that is, right? So that is a huge win. And the thing that keeps amazing me is that like how many you keep stacking up. So uh, this has been amazing. But just to be sure that you feel complete, is there anything else you want to share on this topic before we move on to the next one?
Uh, yeah, based on just my own personal experience, I would say that please get started on LinkedIn sooner rather than later. And then the best time to build your network is when you don't need it.
Okay. I feel like that was said to me now because I don't have a presence. I probably should do that as well. Cool.
Yeah.
Noted. Thank you. On behalf of everyone who's listening. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so I love this. So we have the Sanskrit gold medal episode, and we have a couple more. Do you want to talk about the Sanskrit gold medal episode now?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. Okay, cool.
And when I got the gold medal, it's, oh my God, I was doing everyththing that I was doing, and I had piled up one more thing, which was so incredibly hard, and I won the gold medal. Okay, now I know why she's saying I'm a high achiever, a high performer.
So I actually want you to give the context for this one because the way, yeah, the way you, the reason why you even wanted to do this, all of that is just like so beautiful. So let's start from there, and then I can help you with some questions as and when I find the appropriate segue.
Yeah, yes. So I started on this journey of wanting to memorize and recite Bhagavad Gita in its entirety. And like I wanted to enroll my children, in fact my daughters, to be able to do this. So we this was back in August of 2020, right, 2023. And me and both my daughters, and of course my husband, all four of us, we went to the orientation session. And then right then and there, we wanted like the children to be enrolled, so we enrolled both of them. And my younger daughter was only 6 years old then, so they had said that if the child is 6 years or younger, a parent had to register, and it was compulsory, it was mandatory, because it otherwise it is very hard to make like little kids stay accountable, because they are just still kids and they're playing around, you know how it is. So they had no like reservations with taking in the enrollment of my older daughter, who was like 10 years old. But for my younger daughter, they needed like a parent to be enrolled along with her in order to like keep things accountable, and then to also like help her on this journey. So then I enrolled as like a co-sponsor, if you can say that word, for my younger daughter. So me and my younger daughter, we enrolled, and my elder daughter also enrolled, and all of us, we started learning Bhagavad Gita. And the way it happens is, on Monday and Wednesday we have like a 1 hour Zoom session, wherein they teach 10 shlokas on Monday, 10 shlokas on Wednesday, and then the following Sunday there is an assessment exam wherein you have to uh, memorize those 20 shlokas that were taught in this week, and then you have to recite all of them to another teacher. So we started, all three of us started the first month. When I was first introduced to Sanskrit, first they taught us some basic like pronunciation on how to pronounce certain words, and then some very basic grammar on when this letter is followed by this letter, or this letter is always followed by this letter, or if there is a dot on top of that alphabet, then it is pronounced in a certain way, or if there is a dot on top below the alphabet, then this letter never follows that letter. So we were explained in one of the next following sessions, we had like a pronunciation class, then we had like a one basic grammar class, and then we started on the journey. I started enjoying like learning along with the girls, because I had not like used my vocal cords in a certain way and made all these like sounds. It felt like I was not using my or doing any judgment to my voice, and then and also it felt like when I started on this journey, it was in that, but like the challenge which you talk about in the cohort, it was not so easy that I would just like check out and not pay attention and be there, or it was not so difficult that I would find it so overwhelming and I will say this is too hard and I give up. So it was like right in between, like that Goldilocks zone, wherein I was enjoying the challenge and I was liking learning, making these Sanskrit syllables and using like my vocal cords and all the parts of my vocal cords which I had not expressed my voice in such a way like ever, maybe, or maybe in a very long time. Maybe I did like play like this when I was a kid. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. But then after we did the first month, it was now starting to get very overwhelming, because as in every Sunday passes, we have these assessments, and if you don't clear the assessment, they just take those bunch of shlokas and they put them in the backlog. So now the backlogs were piling up, and uh, my elder daughter was finding it so difficult. And then we realized that if all three of us do it, it's like I don't have time to mentor and monitor my daughters. So what we did was, okay, let's just drop the enrollment of my elder daughter. Then me and my younger daughter will continue, and my elder daughter, she can do it the following year. Then the second month passed, and now by the by the second month, now I started finding it so difficult, because earlier when I was like building and making these connections, it was like all brand new, it was all registering in my mind as brand new. But then the same words kind of keep repeating in Bhagavad Gita, like in multiple places, in multiple shlokas, and in multiple chapters. So as and when we were progressing through these chapters, when these words were repeating, I used to like go back into that loop and then go back and pick up from one of the different chapter, a different shloka. So I was now confused. So earlier it was all brand new, and now it is like revision or uh, regurgitation of like the same word. And now I'm like getting confused, like is are they talking about the fourth chapter, or are they talking about the second chapter? Like this word comes in both places. So then I started finding it quite challenging. and I was not able to like keep up with this. Like I was overwhelmed at one point, wherein because I did not drop anything that I had on my plate, I was continuing to in my full time employment, and I was still a mother, and I'm still a wife, and I have the home, that kids, and everything to take care. And on top of that, I had piled on this one more additional. So then we were like, okay, now this is getting really out of hands. And there were like, I had this path, I was standing in this path where there were like, it would fork into two directions. The first one is either I give up and then just say that it was too hard, or I'm too busy, or I don't have time for this, or something, or just make up something, some excuse. Or at this time maybe I should drop the enrollment of my younger daughter as well, and then just continue with full focus and full steam ahead on my path. Cause what I had noticed in my limited 2 month of experience was it was easy to learn it correctly the first time, rather than uh, learn it incorrectly, then unlearn it, and then relearn it. That was taking way longer. And I had noticed that just with my own personal experience in these 2 months of learning Sanskrit, that, oh, okay, it's because it was all brand new and I was registering it the first time, it was all easy. And then the second time, when these words were repeating, now I had to like unlearn a certain pattern, and then I had to relearn again. Okay, this followed by this is in second chapter, but this followed by this is in fourth chapter. And it also made sense at the time, like logically, that if I continue this journey and I learn it the right way, it will be so much easier for both my daughters when I enroll them the following year, that I can teach them the pronunciation in the right way, rather than they struggling with what I was struggling, which is like unlearn and relearn and then figuring out is it right or wrong. So then after the end of the second month,
I have
we.
a okay. I have some questions and some reflections
Oh,
here.
sorry.
Yeah, no, no, no. Great. Yeah, I love it. So you started this journey for your daughters,
Yes.
and by the first month, it was already very clear that it was hard for one of your kids. So
Yeah.
the first kid drops during that time, and by the time it's your second month, you're already like, this is already way more difficult for me, and you're now thinking about how it's going to be for your youngling, and you're trying to figure out, can I even finish this, right? And so for those who are listening, I want to draw a parallel here because you mentioned this beautiful forking point, and I think high performers, we tend to take upon projects after projects. Thank you. Go away. Projects after projects, and we don't drop anything, right? We don't drop anything. As we achieve more, our desires grow. Desire to explore life, desire to explore different art forms, getting more creative. So, like, if you're a CEO, if you're a founder, you're a business owner, like, there's a clear parallel to this, which is, I'm just starting something new, and the first month everything is new, the scope is small. It's so easy to like tackle that. It's so easy to like understand, learn, and like master the skill. And now by the time it's month two, the scope has expanded so much that now, okay, with the expanded scope, now the difficulty has just like jumped up by like 10 levels all of a sudden. And now I have to do this like complete rewiring of my brain. And as I'm trying to do that, I'm also realizing how much I have taken onto my plate. And my plate is full, and I'm trying to juggle like 20 things right now. So that fork, it doesn't matter what role you are in. Like, if you can pause this for like 30 seconds to 3 minutes, you can literally write down all the things you're doing, and this is what I picked up on, and month one, this was my experience, month two, this is what's going through, this is what I'm going through in my head, this is how I'm processing it. And month one could be week one for certain projects, and week two is already like your month two, right? Like, the timeline of that, these are just details, but the energetic blueprint of that is what I wanted to call out on. Like, this is something that people do over and over again. And I love your story because it's a very concrete story with like clear points where you can flag certain things. And then this fork is where you are now faced with a very important decision to make. You're like, which way do I go? And your awareness is what I appreciate a lot, because the whole like learning, unlearning, and learning again the right way, that's a very common thing, especially when I was playing chess. Like, I had an amazing coach. One of his most important qualifications, even like before he would say yes, I would work with this kid, was he would test the kids uh, on their capacity to unlearn old patterns, because he's taking people as his students for the first time, right? And it's very rare that a kid comes to you with a complete blank slate. So then a part of the work is like teaching the kids how to unlearn the bad habits, because if you don't unlearn, you're not going to learn the new neural pathways, and you won't be able to like integrate the new lessons. You won't be able to move fast. So the fact that you even like notice that, and you're like, okay, this is very important. Like, getting it right the first time is way more important, because you're right. Like, if you have to unlearn and learn it, especially something as hard as Sanskrit, a language you've never learned before, and Sanskrit being one of the toughest languages to master. Again, draw a parallel to you being a CEO, business owner. You've never done this before, and you're trying to do this for the first time, right? So it's like now you're building new neural pathways. So it's always better to like do it the right way, which is also why I love when people have this energetic support. Like, get the energy based energy mastery, like master your energy, because then you will do it the right way, instead of like going down a path and then coming back to like backtracking and then shifting your energy and then going in another way, right? Because that like awareness and making sure that it's done the right way the very first time is like super important. So I'm hooked. So tell me, so you're at this forking point, and now you've decided, or you, at least you become aware that like if you
Yeah.
learn it the right way, then you can make the lives of your daughters much easier the next year.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
where you are. Yeah.
One point I do want to clarify though, it was never that it was hard for my younger daughter to pick it up. It was actually really easy for kids even younger than her to do it, because they are completely present and they are absorbing, and then they can simply like get it. The
Mm-hmm.
hard part was I was not able to make time
Mm-hmm.
for to help her. Like, I had to recite it to her for her to pick it up, which is where I was struggling. That I also wanted to continue on the journey, and then I wanted her, but then
Mm-hmm.
she needs my support, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what we signed up even on day one, telling that I am this co-sponsor for her and I am going to support her. But
Mm-hmm.
now I was at this confusion, and it was never on the ability of her to be able to pick up. I knew, and even now she is able to. It's just that I couldn't make time for it, and that was a struggle I was facing. Like, I only have this many hours in the day, and I cannot, like, now is the point where I have to decide, am I going to give those hours to myself, or am I going to give those hours to her? So then I decided I'm going to give those hours to myself, and then I dropped her enrollment.
I love that clarification. Yeah, I love that very much. That's awesome. Yeah, so that's great. So it was she could pick it up, but if
Yeah.
you were to be her act, like if you were to do your duties as a co-sponsor, and if you were
Yeah.
to be by her side and help her, you had to make sure that you knew it as well as she did, and that was where you had to make a decision. Is that
That's
is that
right.
accurate?
That's
Right.
accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So that is also, yeah, that's one of the things. Actually, I can draw a parallel to that in my. I'm trying to do some of my own editings, like video edits and all that stuff, right? So I try to do that a lot in even like you're an engineer, but you try to understand the perspective of a designer so that you actually can translate it, right? It's not a very parent child type of like an absolute responsibility, but I noticed that a lot of high performers and like people with that creative mindset and who keep going after the creative endeavor, they always try to make sure that no, I need to make sure that I'm good, but before I can like go and help someone else, or
Yeah.
like before I can go like and like give instructions or like get them to do things for me. In your case, it's even more beautiful because you're literally like, okay, my kid is freaking smart. she's smart, she can handle it.
Yeah.
But can
Yeah.
I? Can
Yeah,
I step
yeah, I
up?
knew she could, but I
Yeah.
couldn't because I didn't have enough time, and then I should say honestly, I should say I was greedy at that point that I should somehow complete this, because if I were like I was at a point where I had only limited number of hours, and it if like mastering one shloka takes like say this many minutes, and I only have X number of minutes, now I have to, well, for her, and it's 4x the minutes for me compared to for her, but then I was like, no, I'm gonna do it.
Okay. Also, if you decided that you were not going to do it, like genuinely curious, could you have actually helped her as a co-sponsor, or would that have been like a job that you did might not have been fulfilling for you, or would you have doubted yourself?
I would have still helped her, but then somewhere I would have had this, like, I don't know, like an unfulfilled sort of, or somewhat like, oh, I'm a loser, sort of a thing behind my mind, and I
Yeah.
didn't want to have those things. Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm assuming, I mean, I don't want to skip ahead to the end of the story, but I do have a question. Maybe I'll hold
Sure.
on to it. I was,
Okay.
yeah, I'll hold on to it. But yeah, okay. So you're at this fork and you're aware of how you think you might feel if you continued on down on one path versus the other. And so now what happens? Like you
Yeah.
decided that you
So
stay
that
on
was.
track?
Yeah, so by end of September, my elder daughter's enrollment is dropped, and now by end of October, which is end of second month, my younger daughter's enrollment is also dropped. So now I continue forward as like this solo warrior on this journey, and it was getting more and more and more difficult by the day, because it wasn't getting any easier, and everything was either still the same or I had like the same responsibilities. And at one point in time I was feeling so frustrated that I wasn't even able to understand, like, why do I have to like put myself through this? Like, what am I even going to get out of it? Like, why do I have to do this? And at on the other side of the coin, I didn't want to set this example to my daughters that, first is I dropped their enrollment, and then now halfway through, if I drop my enrollment, it seems like, oh, my mother is giving me a message that if it gets too hard, then just don't worry about it, then just drop it and like just give up. And I didn't want to set that as an example to my children. So that's when I was like, okay, no matter what, I will continue through to the end of the journey. And if I fail in the final assessment, I can still like justify to both my girls that, okay, I at least gave my best shot. I completed the journey, but I did not clear the final assessment, which is a different story. And I am going to again work at it the following year along with both of you. But then if I abruptly drop my enrollment halfway through, midway, then it's just going to send them a message that I did not want them to absorb. That if it gets too hard, then just give up and then just take the easy thing. So that's
Which
why
month?
I
Which
this
month are we in? This is like month.
this decision around giving up and like why am I doing this? All of this, all of this is like November through November through, let's say, January,
So that's like month 4 to 6?
4 through 6. Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah. So it is a 10-month long journey.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It ends in May because you
Okay.
have your final exam at the end of May.
Right.
So um, then I had been
So,
going
just to be clear, so month two, you make the decision for you to stay on track, and then in 2 more months, things have already become even more difficult.
even more difficult. Yes.
Got it.
After I
Okay.
dropped my enrollment of both my children, then they have become even more and more difficult. And my list of backlogs is also piling up higher and higher, because I wasn't able to clear my Sunday assessments, my weekly Sunday assessments. The only thing I kind of honestly did was I just like consistently showed up every Sunday, uh, to my mentor to give the assessment, whether I was prepared or not. But there I was at least sincere and persistent and not like, at least not running away and not showing up. Yeah.
Okay,
And
perfect. So this is what's happening in your inner psyche all the way from November to Jan, and
yeah,
you have this big thing coming up in May, which is like the
yeah,
goalpost. Okay.
yeah. So then at the end of January, I realized that I'm wasting a lot of time, like a way, like 100x of my effort in doing this back and forth. Like, should I give up? Should I not give up? Like, what is the right thing? Why am I doing it? Is it the right thing? Is it not the right thing? And then I was like, okay, let me just drop all this drama of going back and forth, and let me just stick through it, and then pursue it through to the end, and then let me just see what happens. So every time after that, whenever I used to be in the struggle of like, this is too hard, like, why are you putting me through this, I used to say like, no, there is no other going back, there is only going forward. So when I had made that decision of like, stop I stopped wavering back and forth, and then I just made up my mind like, this is what I'm going to do all the way through. It's just only one way, that the way is only forward. That's when actually things started easing up quite a bit in January, or moving forward from January. Maybe it was just like a psychological thing, because Sanskrit wise it was still the same, it was still difficult. Or maybe I got hang of it. I don't know if it was like a psychological thing, or if it was like something I found in the language that was easy. Or but once I had made up my mind that I'll not go back and forth, and there's only one way to move, that moving is moving forward. I was able to make rapid progress. And then when I had my final assessment in May, I did really well. I cleared my assessment, and I also had like zero pronunciation errors from my center, among all the students from my center. So that was just wonderful. It was a huge accomplishment to celebrate. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Can I add some more context to that?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. So, actually, before that, I have a few questions for you. So, this January, November to January, when you're thinking about all these things, that's also when you have the big speaking event. Is that right? Is that the same January we're talking about?
It's the same January we're talking about. Yes.
Okay, so you're still handling, so you're still getting coaching sessions around that, and you're
Yeah.
still like managing that. And where does your brand presence, like the building exercise, where is that by that point? Is that like the Priya story happened, didn't happen yet? You're putting out videos, or like where is that in that timeline?
The Priya story had also happened in January, and I had
Okay,
put out the video in February. So it is all the same timeline we're talking about in multiple dimensions. And
right.
that was also the other thing that I had to, so I had to also scale that down, because, like I said, there is only this many hours in the day, and I cannot like keep. And I was also finding at one point, like building my presence to be extremely distracting, because I wanted to be focused on this goal of clearing my final assessment in Sanskrit.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, this building presence is like a long haul game. It's not like suddenly I come here and I decide I'm going to build my presence, and tomorrow I'm not going to have this presence. I have, like, what I have seen of my colleagues is they had built this presence over the years. So it's that consistency is what matters, of like doing it at least at regular intervals. So I was literally like struggling with and juggling all these things, and I wanted to like scale that thing down, scale this thing down, and then eventually I scaled a lot of things down by like in May. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. If scaling down things for you is literally like doing 12 speaking engagements in a year when you did all these things, then yeah, go ahead. That's awesome. So by this time, you're handling the big speaking event. We literally spoke about the session and all that stuff, but that was not a simple shift you made, because that ended up being the beginning of the snowball of like 12 plus 13 more sessions, right? Or plus. And you're also building a social media presence, however scaled down that is, and you're also taking care of your Sanskrit, and you're still, like you said, you still are a kick-ass employee, you're getting awards, and you're still the mom, the loving wife, and you also take every other relational responsibilities, the daughter, everything else seriously, and like you said, the house to manage. So you're doing all of this, and now this is happening. And so obviously anyone can understand why there was that indecisiveness of like, am I like, do I want to drop this ball, do I want to keep moving forward? And a lot of what you had shared with me earlier was around, if I did drop this, then what am I telling my kids? And if you wanted to do that, I don't think there's anything wrong in it. Like, it's okay to like reshuffle the board and like keep some juggling balls aside until there's energetic mental space for it. But because of the reason, your why of like showing up as this version of you for your daughters, that dropping wasn't an option. So there was no reason to like be indecisive. And the context I wanted to add was, in your session, I'm pretty sure we did inner child work as well. There was quantum healing, and then we went and looked at like what was happening. So the root chakra is the center for safety, stability, and also this like responsibility center where you can make decisions, clear decisions, and then like stand by them, and then just like build your actions from that decisions, right? So that's what we did. And that's it. I don't think you ever brought it up. The next time I heard about this whole endeavor was, hey, like these are the photos. Like I won gold medal.
Yeah.
So that I like, when you put everything into context, it makes sense. Makes total sense why you would have that. Am I wasting too much time in this one thing? And as beautifully as you manage to scale back the other things, it doesn't look scaled back at all for me. But you manage that part, right? So that's another parallel of like, okay, if you're doing like 10 things and you just took on two new things and you're scaling back down, and for you, it looks like I'm scaling back down a lot of things, and still people are watching you like, this is a magician. Like, it's like, how are they doing this, right? So
Yeah.
I love how you came to that, like to that end point, your goal post feeling good.
Yeah. And then one thing, when I remember when you had or when I had sent this email to you about with the pictures, like, hey, I won the gold medal and I cleared my exam in distinction. So that's when I also felt like worthy of the label high achiever or high performer, because you had referred me or addressed me with that label throughout, like right from the time of the cohort and even while we were doing these coaching sessions. But then I honestly, like, I used to think, oh, maybe she's referring to somebody else, like in the cohort. Maybe it's not me, or maybe she meant something else. Because I used to think the word like high achiever or high performer, it meant that they had like a certain title in their like job title, or they had like certain, maybe like certain bank balance in their bank account. And then, no, I don't have any of those. Like, why does she think? And then when I got the gold medal, I was, oh my God, I was doing everything that I was doing, and I had piled up one more thing, which was so incredibly hard. And I won the gold medal. Okay, now I know why she's saying I'm a high achiever, a high performer.
That's awesome. Okay, so I'll expand that a little bit. So the energetic blueprint of a high performer, which obviously there's a reason you came into the cohort, because the cohort was created for those people. Every single one of you who stepped into it, you're all amazing high performers. It's those people who want to be excellent in everything that they do. It's about self-expression and aiming for excellence, right? There's a fine line between being a perfectionist versus excellence. That's a whole another topic. But it's about going after excellence. And that's what you've been. Like, you've been taking every single role that you've had and try to be the best. Like the best daughter, the best mom, the best wife, the best employee, right? So now it's just, then when we look at that energy blueprint, and then when we give it the right support and help it needs, then this is what happens. So you're right. It's not about, oftentimes it might look like it has everything to do with the roles, the titles, the bank balance, and all that stuff. It will look like that, but it's not it's just the tip of the iceberg, right? The actual high performer blueprint starts much deeper, the way you show up and how much curiosity you have in life, what you want to master, and even your decision to like not drop off the Sanskrit whole I don't know if it's an experiment or a challenge, and like not dropping it off. Your reason wasn't like, I need to show the world. It wasn't that. It was like, I need to make sure that my daughters have a good role
Yeah.
model, right?
Right, yeah,
Right.
that was the most important thing, especially because we all had started this together, and they also have a lot more context on what it is, what it takes, and it was hard, and both of them agree, like both my daughters agree that it was hard, and then now it was very like clear for them in front of their eyes that their mom is saying, "Oh, if it's so hard, then just give up. Like, why do you want to try?" So, and I didn't want that to happen to them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So for you, you've always been that people who want to do their best, which most all of us are always trying to do the best, but most of the people who want to do their best very consciously and have a beautiful heart. That's my definition of a high performer. So yeah, I love that you were able to get to that point where you're like, okay, now actually Shami is actually talking to me. I'm glad.
Yeah, when she's addressing me, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm the one she's talking to.
And I'm glad at least you clocked that from the beginning. You're like, okay, from the beginning, she's been using this term
Yeah,
on me. I love this because I had no idea. I had no idea that you would think that you didn't, that label didn't apply to you. Like I
yeah,
had no idea because we didn't talk about it. You didn't bring that to me, right? So it was like, so then when I heard you say it for the first time, which was just like couple of days before this call, I was like, wow, like seriously. And I'm actually running into more and more of that actually with people. Like even people are like, oh, this is a container, this is a coaching container for people, for high performers. And in some instances they have the role, they have everything that you just listed, and yet they're like, I'm not a high performer. And it's like the creator bias is like, I just built this beautiful app, but I think my code is shit. It's, but the people who are using your app are like, this is awesome. Like, how did you make this app? So I'm learning something. I'm definitely learning how some of you all look at yourself. So this has been it's been very fun for me as well. Awesome. So oh yeah. So the other one that I remember is how you mentioned you made a reference to the cohort initially about the flow. So for those who are listening, it's the challenge skill ratio that we try to manage. Right. So one of the core pillars of this work is neuroscience-based flow coaching. And so what we were looking at is how to keep Shwati, you in that flow channel. So if the challenge keeps rising up, your skill also has to rise up. You could do it either way. But like challenge keeps rising up, the skill keeps rising up. And you have to make sure that you're in this flow. That slope could be high for some people, could be low. But what is your flow channel and how can we keep you in that? So that was the one thing. And the other thing that we did in our work together was we actually looked at some of the research around like Sanskrit. We looked at how in UK they had these kids split into two separate sets, and the first set of kids had both the sets of all the kids in that whole entire experiment, they had all the classes exactly the same: math, physics, chem, everything, right? And then in one set they had Sanskrit, the other set they didn't have, and that's it. That was the only variable. And then the kids who got the Sanskrit coaching did far superior. So it was also using like data backed research to actually help you realize that no matter what happens, you're already rewiring your brain. Like you're building absolutely insanely cool neural pathways, which is only going to make you way more smarter than you already are. And so we had to look into that. And you were also very much aware that your parents were going to celebrate you. Uh, and
yes,
you were also shying away from it as much as you were like, I will be a failure and I will disappoint my parents.
yeah,
And a part of you is like, oh, my parents are going to make this a big deal. They're going to share this photo with everyone. I don't want this to be a big deal. And then there was the fear of success as well. But the context for that was the fear of success and the fear of failure you had, and we worked on that in one session. And I think the sessions, the way the session started, obviously we didn't start with I have a fear of failure. Like that level of
yeah,
awareness comes in the during the session. But the way the session started was, I don't like I'm not sure what I'm going to get out of this by the time I finish it, right? And then we looked
Yeah.
into, let's look at it. Would you consider this as a success if you were just able to just completely rewire your neural pathways? Then it's like, oh, I don't want to succeed. I don't want to fail. I don't want to do these two things. So, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So I do remember like during that period when I talked about when it became very, very hard for me. And now I was like stranded on this island. I had already dropped the enrollment of my daughters, and I did not want to drop my enrollment, but I did not know what I would do because I was going a lot of back and forth. And that's when we had done the session about this is getting so hard. It's like incredibly hard. And I don't know why I'm like putting myself through it, and we looked at it from different angles, and then we talked about like how in the initially when I had started I was like so thoroughly enjoying like so many aspects. For example, like I had mentioned, I had not used like parts of my vocal cords or made like these really weird sounds or used these syllables in Sanskrit ever, and I was so like enjoying that portion of it. But then towards the middle, when it was getting like really, really hard, I had forgotten in the initially why I had shown so much interest and why I had wanted to continue and taken the decision to even in fact like drop the enrollment of my daughters. That I'm going into this like cycle of this intense fear of failure, and I like stopped enjoying all the things that were like giving me all this joy and curiosity and happiness of why when I had initially started I had all those things, and now I was like just dreading this fear of failure midway through. And uh, then we actually did like a healing session wherein I could see uh, like during my childhood there were times and moments where I had associated like my me being successful as me receiving my approval and love from my mother. So I had intertwined those things. And even though like now I'm like a fully grown adult, and even to this point the fear of failure like brings me like these intense feelings of like fear and anxiety and rejection, that oh, maybe what if my mother would abandon me, or what if she would stop loving me. And none of those are true, but logically when I speak it out it makes sense to the logical brain. But then when I am like in that moment of oh my god, this like the Sanskrit thing is so hard, and what if I fail, like what am I going to do, or what's going to happen, like I will be abandoned or I will be like stranded here. So those were some of the things we worked through in the healing session.
Yeah. And to add one more context, so you had that childhood energetic memory that we had to work through. There was the quantum healing of the inner child, plus the inner child work, right? And you were also very much aware that your parents were going to celebrate you, uh, and
Yes.
you were also shying away from it as much as you were like, I will be a failure and I will disappoint my parents.
Yeah.
And a part of you is like, oh, my parents are going to make this a big deal. They're going to share this photo with everyone. I don't want this to be a big deal. And then there was the fear of success as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was a, and this is another thing that most high performers, I'm going to use that now that I know you weren't relating to it before, but most high performers have is exactly that. Like you have a fear of failure, but then you also have a fear of success, or you have a fear of success which you're aware of, but then you also have a fear of failure which you were not aware of, and these
Yeah.
things show up in this like deep work that you do.
That's right. I think in that session when we started, we went through the fear of failure and we looked at it like really closely. But then this also came up, the fear of success. And also, on one hand, I was wanting my parents to like celebrate, and I was really happy that this will be like such a proud moment for my mother and my father, my accomplishment. And So on one hand, I was very afraid that I will let them down, and I will let their expectations down. And also on the other hand, I know like how my father's way of expressing his own like celebrating this accomplishment would be like publishing it to the whole world, like sending it across on WhatsApp to like all these groups, to his friends whom he may have not talked in like 10 years, and he's like, here, listen, like, so yeah, we did talk about that.
Like if you have a fear of failure and you're content with not succeeding, that's one thing. But you want to succeed, you have a fear of success, and you're stuck with the fear of failure. It's like you're ping ponging, right? And that's really when you're just like spinning the wheels and you're wasting so much energy. The indecisiveness shows up. Yeah, that was a beautiful shift because I'm glad we worked on that because after that, there was no more wastage of energy expenditure. It wasn't like stuck between two different fears, which both are like not serving one another. Like if you have a fear of failure and you're content with not succeeding, that's one thing. But you want to succeed, you have a fear of success, and you're stuck with the fear of failure. It's like you're ping ponging, right? And that's really when you're just like spinning the wheels and you're wasting so much energy. The indecisiveness shows up. Like there are behavioral tells that you can like clock and say, okay, this is what's happening. And and so that was a beautiful shift. And I'm glad we worked through that because you not only did you end up rewiring your entire brain because you picked up this new language and like a language of energy of all things, which is what Sanskrit is, because it's like every single sound resonates with this like proverbial petal in your chakra system. So it's the language of energy as well. So as you were doing that, and I can't believe that you were doing all of this like 5 things in the same January. Like we only
I
pointed out,
was, yes.
yeah, we only pointed
Yeah.
out 3 right now. We have more to talk about. But
Yeah,
yeah.
and this reminds me of like a very funny instance. So I had gone to one of the speaking engagements here at the Capital Factory in Austin, and they were talking about something about AI, like unintended consequences of AI. And in my handbag, I had taken the like Bhagavad Gita book, wherein because like every Sunday I have an assessment. It's like I'm clogged, and it's not like I can, and then otherwise my backlogs will keep piling up. So I had taken that in my handbag, and I had set all my stuff like in one corner. It was like a room. It was like filled with people. Like even the organizers did not expect like so many people would show up for that session. Maybe it was the topic at the time. So then when I was leaving, somebody like and they had asked me, wait, is this Bhagavad Gita book is yours? Like it's set right next to your handbag. Then I said, yeah, it is mine. And then he was puzzled, like, why did you bring that to the session? Like maybe he thought I'll bring some AI related book to the session or what. Then I said, wait, I have an exam on Sunday. So if I had some, like I did not know what the format was. Sometimes they give you, like they ask you come 30 minutes ahead of the session, and then you have like just nothing to do but just wait until the 30 minutes pass. And I did not want to waste like 30 minutes in my life because I could prepare for some more shloka so I could like give my assessment on Sunday. So I had brought the book, but then it was like a very well organized event, so I did not have any breaks or any time to pick up the book and read. But still, it was very funny. It reminded me of that. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. I almost have this like vision of just like putting a this is what a high performer is edit because I'm the one who's going to do the edit most likely. So it's going to be fun. But that's what I mean. Like you just take there's a sincerity to doing things, and that's what makes that label. Yeah, so this is beautiful. So we worked through, and there are like few more layers that we worked through it, but I'm just like this feels like a beautiful completion to this, and you worked through so many layers to get to where you got to, and just like seeing the gold medal, right? And also the other thing I want to point out is I don't think I knew your why as much as I know now back when we were working in the sessions because it was just like I don't want to drop this. Can I get
Yeah,
some help?
I know. Yeah.
Right. And that's and I only point that out to be like I don't have to know all of that stuff because I only have to follow the energy trails. And you tell, like, if you have a clear, concrete goal, if you're like, I don't want to drop this, then you'll get the help for that. On the other hand, if you're like, I want to drop this, but I want to feel good about it, then you would have gotten the help for that, right? Like,
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
it's the right.
When I
And
had come into the session, I was just bringing in like what was most bothering, like most painful for me. Like at the time, I wanted to pursue this, but this was so painful, like not like literally painful in the body, but like I just did not want to give up, but it was so hard and I just didn't know how else to do it.
yeah, yeah, so the that's the beauty of it. Like you like I don't have to know the entire context for you to get the benefits of it because we're just like getting to it, shifting the energies fast and furious, and you're just like going in like just creating magic in the outer world, right? Like that's the most beautiful part of it. All right. So the other thing I wanted to point out is um, we have this like larger theme that we want to work on, right? Like, hey, like we want to work on this, and then life happens, like new desires come up, like whatever, right? So this is what I would recommend everyone to do. Like there are two signals that you can always look for to see which ones you want to work on first, which is the first one is like, is there anything that's very painful? And it's nice that you were like, it's not as painful, like it's not really painful in my body. And I know why you say that because like the 13-year-old pain, you're like, it's not like that. But
Yeah.
sometimes pain is very mental, very, and sometimes it's very emotional, right? Like our body is physical, emotional, mental, and ethereal. So it's like the pain could be anywhere. So it's like you're aware of the pain is interfering, and it's your quality of life is taking a hit or whatever is happening, right? So it's like if something is painful, let's take care of that because that's a signal that the pain is a signal that's telling something about your subconscious belief systems or about your environment. So let's listen to that. Let's shift the energy because now you're unlocking and unleashing so much energy that now you then can use it in so many creative ways. So that's the first signal. Look for pain. I mean, you don't look for pain, pain will scream at you, but like pay attention and take care of it. Second one is this you have to look for. Look for the dreams and desires because the ones that you get super excited about, like you're like, oh, I want to like work on. For you, the video was one such thing,
Yeah.
and Sanskrit in the beginning was one such thing, and we had to make sure you found your way back to that same joy,
Yeah.
same curiosity. So it's like the desire, because the desire always leads you to a path of growth if done correctly, right? Like this is a path of growth, and you just have to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons and like people with a good heart. That's why I like working with them because it's like your desire is not about it's not a zero sum game. It's not like hurting someone else. It's like this is about growth, evolution, learning more about life, becoming better at something, mastering something. So those are the two signals I really want to point out. It's like what is the thing that your soul gets super excited about, or what is the thing that is bothering you or taking your focus attention constantly, because that is a signal waiting to be handled, to be listened to be tackled. And even though you had a string of themes and these like goals coming up, as in life comes up, we take care of that, and then now you go win gold medals. Something that started as a side quest. So
I
so
know, yeah. It wasn't even my quest. I actually wanted my daughters to get it. And then
yeah.
it's so kind of morphed and transformed that I ended up getting it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, beautiful. This is a beautiful story. I love every single point that we just touched upon. And so yeah. So is there anything else you would like to share uh, before we move on to the next one?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. All right. So we spoke about a bunch of your accomplishments, and I think we're gonna talk about the story revolving a bunch of kids, the
Yeah.
energy around some childhood pains, and a little bit of drama and whatnot. So, why don't you start with the context, and I can give you the prompts or ask questions as and when it's appropriate.
Yeah, sure. So this personal story that I'm going to share about has occurred when my elder daughter was 10 years old.
Sorry, I think we both have slipped into a very professional mode. We were very chill before, and then this one is like it's gonna come after that one. It's gonna be confusing to the people. It's like what happened to them? They were flowing, and then now they're
I
talking like
know.
it's like an interview again instead of a chat. Okay, so like, we have to recalibrate. Let's not do that. Oh boy. Okay. Oh, okay. How do we do this? Let me ask questions because that eases you up usually. All right, awesome. So we just spoke about your Sanskrit gold medal journey, your LinkedIn slash social media brand presence building journey, and a bunch of others. The 13-year-old pain and the healing journey of that. Losing the Michael Kors handbag. And so we have one more awesome testimonial around a story involving kids, and that's always the hardest to shift the energy around. But I love this. I absolutely love this story for sure. So can you tell me a little bit about what was happening in your life at this time before you came into the session, and what was the goal during the session, and like what happened afterwards after the session, right? And yeah, like give us the backstory and then take us through the journey.
Whenever I was picking her up, or whenever I was like looking at her while I was slowly pulling through in the carpool lane, and I could look at her in her face, like there was no joy, and she was like utterly devastated and heartbroken, and I could not take it. Yeah. So when I had come into this session, this time, for once, I had a clear intention on what I wanted to accomplish. And the thing that was bothering me the most was my daughter, and my elder daughter. She was 10 years old back then, and she was going through like a friendship heartbreak sort of a thing, wherein she was a part of a group of friends, and then suddenly something happened wherein she was feeling rejected, and she was like finding it very hard figuring it out all herself, like where do I belong, like is this my place or is that my place, or like what, for her as a 10-year-old to comprehend about what is, or what exactly should be, or when it comes to friendship, she was getting more and more curious and asking questions about what exactly friendship means, and what it means to her, and what it means to these other friends who no longer wanted to be her friends anymore. And this started to intensify over a period of time, I would say maybe over 3 weeks or maybe 4 weeks. So, and every time in the afternoons, I go to the school to pick them up. I wait in the carpool line, and then I'm waiting until my turn arrives, and then the kids come, they get in the car, and then we go home. So, while I'm driving in, or like slowly moving forward in my car, I can see my children far away, and like that spot where I have to eventually pull up my car and they will get into the car. And when I look at her face, it is just like so long and disappointed and dejected and sad and droopy, and that was what was giving me like heartache. Like I cannot see her. She's very cheerful, joyful person to be with, and and then that continues throughout like our drive back home, and when we get in the home as well, we continue to talk about like what went wrong, or how she was not accepted by her friends, or how they don't want to talk to her anymore, even though she is like open heartedly wanting to like be their friends and be with them and be a part of that group. And how this, also just to talk about the friendship. So when we had first moved from Dallas to Austin, she had, and we were like very new to the school, and she had found these two really wonderful best friends, and they had included her into their group. But then after almost 2 years, I don't know what exactly happened or how the things had happened or the exact like sequence of events. I am not exactly sure because my daughter only gives me like certain bits and pieces of information, and I am also trying to like uh, based on those information that was relayed to me, I am also reconstructing this in my brain. So what I sensed based on the information that she had told me was, so Brittany was somehow sensing that she was and feeling very insecure that my daughter was going to take her, Brittany's best friend Villa, away from her. And they both had been like best friends ever since, like since they were 3 years old. And Britney started like raising the walls like really high, and she would not want to like and she became completely protective of Villa, and she would not like want to let anybody in 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 between Britney and Villa. And she was, like I said, she was feeling very insecure that my daughter was going to steal Villa and like make her not be her best friend anymore. And so this was what was going on, and like they tried to talk through it, but they were like, Brittany was not very willing or open minded about talking through this, and she had somehow concluded that this was not the way to, or that like there was no future for us where they those three could together be best friends and hang out together. So we had in the session, I gave you the background context of what was going on based on what I heard, and then how I was personally feeling whenever I was picking her up, or whenever I was like looking at her while I was slowly pulling through in the carpool lane, and I could look at her in her face like there was no joy, and she was like utterly devastated and heartbroken, and I could not take it. So we talked through that, and there were like many layers to this conversation that we had during that particular healing slash coaching session. One was to look at so for these two people, Brittany and Villa, like how they look at each other as their best friends forever. So when my daughter had joined, like I said, when we moved to Austin, and she wanted to find like such a sort of friendship, and she wanted to find somebody who would emulate and reciprocate this back to her. But somehow she may have thought that she could be like one of those people. But then we eventually talked about how she needs to go. So it's like she, like my daughter herself, if we were looking at it, she herself was the Brittany, and she had to go find her own Villa, and it's not like she could get in between them. There are like many dynamics to that conversation between like three friends hanging out together versus like two best friends hanging out together. So we looked at that. And one thing we saw was about how I could hold space for her, for my daughter to be able to process this heartbreak. And some of the things we did talk about was, what are the things that really give her joy and happiness, and then me setting time aside and spending the time doing things that bring happiness and joy to my daughter, and then just doing this like one on one without like my younger one like interfering or and coming in between. So it now we were like looking at, if we were like, if me and my elder daughter were two best friends, and how would we do this without like my younger daughter intervening, when again the equation would be like three people. So we looked at that. And also not just for my daughter from her perspective, also from, we looked at it from my perspective on what is it that I enjoy doing the most. And for the next couple of weeks we would like, I would focus on doing the things that I enjoyed doing the most while she was processing the heartbreak and moving through this, and until she found like another group of friends. So we did these, we looked at it from these multiple angles, and we did these like, I spent one on one time with her, and then I also put time in my calendar and made time, and I made sure that I was also personally doing activities that give me the most joy. And eventually she was able to process and move through the heartbreak, and she found another like really good group of friends wherein she was like trying to interject and introduce herself, because again, like everywhere the groups are already formed, so it's really hard when the groups are breaking and then the new groups are reforming. She had to like, again, she was like an outsider and she had to like become the insider of that new circle. So she was successful in doing that, and she eventually processed the heartbreak. And I was very happy that she was happy. Also, what ended up happening with Brittany and Villa was they, after all of this happened, a couple of months later, I found out that they were not together anymore. Like they had also separated, they had found their own different groups.
Yeah, okay. So, first things first, obviously, in this case, we're talking about kids, so we definitely changed the names of those kids just so the people know that. So, they're actually not Brittany and Willa, they're two awesome kids with two other amazing names. So, with that said, yeah, this one was a tough one because we're dealing with heartbreak, and like friendship heartbreak doesn't get enough representation in media, like the movies and series and whatnot. But that's the one that we encounter a lot more than the other kinds of heartbreak that gets a lot of representation, right? And this is something that adults struggle with as well. So to fill in some of the context from the energy based coaching session, most of the things were around how, like, you're a new kid, you're going to the school, and you see something and you like it, and now you want to be part of it, right? And then it's just like it was basically like your daughter becoming a very powerful co-creator. That's what was happening. It's like, okay, she's identified what she wants, but if when not taught correctly, then we would think that, oh, I need to go and have that thing that I have in front of me, instead of realizing that I could create this dynamics with someone else, right? And there's nothing wrong in wanting to join two friends. It's just that when the dynamics is not supporting it, and then it's causing you some tears and heartbreak and droopy shoulders every day, day in and day out, right? So then it's like, okay, what do you actually need? You want a good friend, so why don't you become that awesome friend that others want to come and be your friend, like, right? So we, like, your daughter was getting energetic coaching through you, and she was mastering some really like advanced topics through you. These are things that even adults have trouble mastering and integrating, right? Like, okay, I want an awesome friend. Now, how can I be that awesome friend that someone else that I would like would want to, when they see me, they would want to hang out with me? How can I become that person? Like, that's the question, right? Like, that's a $1 million question. So, that was it was definitely an honor to witness, like, you shift your energy, because the energy around you was like, oh, my daughter is going through heartache, I'm the mom, I'm supposed to provide joy and everything else, and also be the shield. And it was your helplessness around your daughter's situation and like not knowing how to hold space, which again is very common. And but then, like, shifting out of that and saying, no, I'm gonna help her embody this like joyful state that so naturally comes to her. So I'm just gonna make sure that she has an outlet, and we're just gonna keep providing these moments where she can come back to it over and over again. And so that's what we worked on. So then like, you as a mom showing up for your daughter as this sort of like a, definitely the friendly parent, right? It's like someone who's like, hey, like, we are gonna have our moment, and we're gonna have fun together. And so there were like layers and layers. So without like going into all of those details, I just want to like highlight the energetic pattern around it, right? So because, like I said, like, friendship heartbreak is actually very hard to like manage, Sometimes it goes on for weeks, sometimes it goes on for months and years, and like it's one of those things that, because it's a co-creative experience, the faster we let go of the attachments, the faster we can go and create what we want to do. But who is good at letting go of attachment, right? So, and especially if you're a kid. But even with all the complications, this story has an amazing ending for sure. So I love how the thing that was fascinating to watch was we shift your energy, your helplessness around it, and obviously we come up with like clear, concrete frameworks around how to actually apply that, not just having that as a very non-tangible idea, but like, okay, this is how we shifted the energy. You could feel the energy shifting. Now, on top of it, how can we sustain it? What does it actually mean for you in your practical day to day? And then now you go live out that. And then in no time, your daughter has forgotten about all the drama, all the heartache, and it's as if nothing happened, which is very childlike, which is what we all aspire to be, right? Like that finger getting burned, and then it's like, oh, the finger never got burned. I've healed. So now she's reached to the other side of that story, and now she's just like happily, she has her own friend groups, and she's just happily enjoying, and in that process you've shifted, and we also worked a little bit on your subconscious beliefs and like your inner child, and then how seeing how working on that was having a ripple effect even in your daughters and your kids' lives, right? So the one thing I would like to point out here is this is the magic of this work, because more often than not, like one person works on that energy, and usually their life partner gets huge benefits from it, or their kids get huge benefits from it. It's like, okay, one person shifts their energy, and then it's like the whole family unit, right? Like it's a family unit, or if you have roommates, it's your roommates, or like whomever you're like, or if it's a co-founder, it's a co-founder, right? So it's like it just like shifts the energy of like everyone that's meaningful, everyone that's impacted by your presence, and some of those people recognize that you are the source of that change. Some people don't recognize, but like you obviously don't care about that as much as just shifting your energy, right? So this was one of those like live practical example of like, hey, when you shift your energy, things around you change, including people. And in this case, like shifting children's energy is like really hard, and you were able to do that. And so that was an awesome story. And like I said, and there are so many layers to it, but just keeping it broad stroke, this is where it started with like a heartbreak story, and it has a really beautiful happy ending, and I love that bit very, very much. Anything else you want to say about that story before we move on to the next segment?
No, I'm good.
Okay, awesome, cool. All right.
The performance or the threshold at where I thought my productivity was, and the threshold was raised like so much higher that it never even occurred to me that, oh, this could be like this could lead to a burnout, because it never did.
Awesome. I love every single one of your wins. And obviously, there's a lot more to your wins. I actually feel like we could go, I don't know, few more hours very easily if we wanted to like talk about every single one of your wins. But for now, every single one of these feels complete, and what a marvelous transformation. And I'm so glad that you took the time to share it with others, including people who are now in the position that you were before, so that they can feel inspired, and they know that there is a way for transformation and breakthrough, and then they can see that, and then they can dream and go for that should they choose to, right? So thank you for doing that. And to wrap up, I have like just a couple of questions for you. So If there is one thing about yourself today that surprises or delights you compared to where you were before, what is that one thing? And if there are a couple of things, please go ahead. Yeah.
So, throughout the like working through with the limitless edge framework and doing the energy healing and coaching and the mastery sessions, one thing I would say that I have observed about myself on before I embarked on this journey to where I am at this point is about how much of a capacity I have in showing compassion to my own self, which I did not have, and I have never looked at it in this way that I could love myself this honestly and this deeply. And also the other like surprising and an interesting fact while I was doing all the speaking engagements and throughout like learning Sanskrit, which had a lot of things to do around my voice and my throat. And I had so deeply fallen in love with my own voice that it just sounds silly that I had this voice throughout, right from the time I was born, and now, like at this point in my life, I have like found my voice and I have fallen deeply in love with my voice. That now once I found it, and I do not want to silence it anymore, and I do not want to stay quiet around. Like I want to make the best use of the beautiful voice that I have. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Awesome. Yeah. To add a point to that, yeah, we actually worked a lot on boundaries and boundaries around work, boundaries around like relationships and like all kinds of things, right, in our sessions, which we didn't get the time to talk about it in this episode. But that's, I'm glad you mentioned that because high performers actually don't resonate with self love or self compassion. They do not. And if they hear that, they just like run away. I know that because that was me. And a part of me still does that, right? So it's like, oh, you just want to like do, achieve a lot more, and you want to be compassionate and loving to every single being around you, but not necessarily towards you. And a part of that is also because when we say self love or self compassion, it seems like a very vague concept instead of something practical, and there's not enough clarity around how to apply that to ourselves. So I love that you've experienced every single transformation around it, and which is why you can even just talk about it even without that being the topic of the conversation. So I love that that was your big takeaway. That I think is a really big win. Yeah, it sits right at the top of like healing a 13-year old like long pain for sure. It's probably like yeah, not to like rate the achievements, but it's as big as that, if not bigger for sure. So awesome! I absolutely love that. I love that for you. And so for someone in your position, or someone in the position that you were in before this journey, this whole journey began, what would you say to encourage them to take the first step, or like what would you say so that they know that they can get this help, or they can start on this like energy mastery journey, so that they can like transform their life in a completely different way? Because obviously
Yeah.
you started someplace. There are things that you might not have thought possible that you have done now, and there are things that you didn't even know to think of to make a judgment on whether this is possible or not, because it's not even like in your imagination, but you've also done them now. So either a past version of Swati or someone who's in your position along your journey, or is there anything else you would tell them?
Yeah, sure. So, and this is not like really to compare uh, the energy healing mastery coaching sort of sessions like with something else or against like something else, but there is like there is like a flavor of what I had done in this coaching sessions, which I had tried to do in the past. For example, there are like there is a flavor to the inner child healing sort of a thing that I had done with a therapist, or like maybe like writing a letter to my younger self, or trying to do these. But then what was really very impactful was being able to be transported into that moment in time, and then doing the energy healing and the energy shifting was what had made the significant difference compared to like having tried like slightly different modalities.
And for those who haven't done this before, it might not be obvious to them. So, and I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like it's one of those things that when you go through the session, it'll make sense. And I know what you're saying is we don't do, or let me share my experience of like how I would interpret that, right? So it's like, yes, we are doing inner, there are different, many different ways of doing the inner child work. And then energy based inner child work literally drops you in that moment so that you can shift the energy. And that's different. Not a comparison, but it's different from other things, right? So that's beautifully said. So I guess is the reason that you mentioned you touched upon that part because you think that's the edge here. That's what made all the healing and manifestation and achievement possible at such a high pace because obviously you've done and accomplished all these things in such a short period of time. And honestly, just like looking at in January of like last year or like March of last year, the fact that you were able to achieve all that you did and didn't hit a burnout wall because that's something that every high performer knows of. Like, there are people who are like, oh, yeah, I crash every 2 weeks. I go full throttle, I crash every 2 weeks. That's just my normal. And then I come back and then I like go ride the wave, right? Like, you didn't even do that while on an 18-month run. So, is the reason that you're talking about this because you think this is the edge, or are there other points that you enjoy the most?
Yeah, that is definitely true. And I honestly did not even think of it in terms of burnout, or it did not even occur to me. Maybe because we had like shifted like the baseline of the performance itself, like to such a the threshold was raised higher. So maybe it never occurred to me about like, oh, this will give me burnout, or this is causing me burnout. But then, yes, I was going like full throttle and I was highly productive throughout like January or March, or throughout the sessions or throughout the period. And yes, the uh, maybe if we could put it that way, that the edge was that the performance or the threshold at where I thought my productivity was, and the threshold was raised like so much higher that it never even occurred to me that, oh, this could be like this could lead to a burnout, because it never did.
Yeah, awesome. So you're even more energized now after accomplishing all of that instead of feeling tired. Yeah?
That's right. And I have so many more goals and dreams and desires to accomplish. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that. I love that so much. Because the high performers high is always it's beautiful. Like you just accomplished something and then now you're feeling the high to like go conquer the next thing. And if you have energy left, then you are gonna conquer that. And if you have hit the burnout and then now you're like having to like pause your life so that you can like rest, recharge, recover. But in your case, instead of hitting the wall and then doing all of that, you've been doing it with so much grace and ease. And I, because I've been working with you, it's been such an honor to witness all of that. And that's the best part for me, to like to see that whole creative train going without crashing here and there. And with that said, is there anything else you'd like to share about your experience that we haven't touched on before we wrap up?
Um, yeah, sure. So honestly, when I first did or when I joined the cohort, or when I did the one-off session, I had like I did not like really clearly have a an end goal of what I would accomplish, or when I had like signed up for the package at the end of the year long container. But then like being open minded and curious about the way I was approaching things, and like you said, every session it was completely different because I had like brought in new and new stuff and presented them to you, that oh, like this part needs to be looked at, or this part needs healing, or like what's going on. I cannot figure out, like this is what's bothering me the most. So I just felt like I was just going along with the flow rather than having it pre-planned, like in a planner. Okay, so this is what I'm going to tackle in this session, and then the third session, this is what I'm going to tackle. So I never had like this pre-planned, jotted down. Okay, this is how it should look like, and at the end of it, this is how I'm going to measure my success, or this is how I'm going to measure like my profit or whatever out of this. Yeah.
Cool. And without all of those concrete metrics that you could have thought of before, but then you didn't have those and then you entered this, how
Yeah.
satisfied or happy are you having gone through this journey?
Yeah, I'm very satisfied and very happy with what I have accomplished throughout the journey, and I highly recommend working with you on the Limitless Edge framework and the coaching that you offer. And I would say, like, do not like limit yourself thinking only this is possible or only this is achievable, because many times what I have seen through the process is like I may not have even formulated of how it should look like or what the end result should look like, and just approach it with curiosity and open-mindedness.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. And to add a little bit of my experience, I think um, I think the way you approached it is very similar to how I approached my own growth. And every single session I worked with my coaches, right? And every training I took, it's been that same experience for me as well. What I knew was I'm going to grow out of this. And I'm going to grow through this experience. So I had that trust and I had that enthusiasm and the curiosity of like what life has to offer. And I knew that I'm gonna go to the next level. And once I go to the next level, then I will know what to dream of from there. And then from there, I'll know what to dream of from there. So it's and also energy being energy. When you master your energy, when you cultivate a lot of energy, it's gonna do the magic for you however you wish. And and highly creative high performers, uh, being highly performing people, and also like people who are always constantly dreaming and pushing your own limits. That's the whole point of the limitless edge framework. You're like pushing your edges and you're figuring out that there's no limit to it, and you're also enjoying life without burning yourself out. So as you embark on that journey, just having this like dedication to yourself is more than enough. And I think that's what I kept seeing in you. It was just like you might not have known what you were going to work on the session that's going to come like 3 sessions from now, but you always knew that day. You always knew in that session. And that comes from a place of like strong dedication to your own self growth and evolution. And that is the most beautiful thing. And the commitment is the most beautiful thing. So thank you so much for that. Um, and this has been fun. I learned a lot about all the ripple effects that our work has done in your life. And seriously, we didn't even talk about all the boundaries and the self compassion work and all that stuff. And I think that's a really big win. Um, and even without going into all the other wins that you've had, we have plenty. We really have plenty here. And thank you so much for giving like all of this. And yeah, I'm sure like there'll be future episodes. And I'm super glad you took the time to do this and giving me the chance and the opportunity to like learn, because this has been such a fulfilling episode. With that said,
Thank you so much for
last
this
words.
opportunity, and and it is a pleasure working with you, and I will continue to work with you as well in the future. And yes, it was wonderful chatting about my journey and sharing about my accomplishments and reminiscing through the journey. And yeah, it was also interesting that looking at it from a different lens. For example, I had never looked at it from that. I did not go through any phase of burnout throughout these peak performance period.
Yeah. Awesome. With that said, we'll end it right here. And thank you, Shwati. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you. Bye.